Chapter 576. The originally clear blue sky was suddenly filled with endless lightning radiance. The electrical radiance was like a sea as it submerged the wilderness. This was a terrifying scene. At this moment, the sky seemed to have caved in. It was pitch black and electrical snakes danced about chaotically. It was as if there were countless flood dragons surging about. Hong. The sound was deafening. If an ordinary person was here, their eardrums would have been blasted through. The tremendous sound was like the roar of a Qilin, shaking up mountains and rivers, about to overturn the great earth. From the distance, that place was oppressive and terrifying. An expanse of black light poured down like a torrential downpour. There were thunderstorms everywhere. Long, long, long. Among them, there were quite a few blood-colored streaks of lightning. They were like rivers of blood flowing into the sea. The scene was horrifying. This peaceful wilderness was immediately broken. At this moment, this place completely erupted. Apart from the ear-shattering thunder, there were no other sounds. The tremendous thunder and lightning even caused the distant mountains to collapse. The electrical radiance didn't even make contact, but the shockwaves alone destroyed many cliffs, making them no longer exist. Rubble pierced through the clouds, and electrical radiance engulfed the heavens. Yen Yunluan crossed tribulation last time, and entered the Odd Scholar Manor. It hasn't even been 3 months, yet he broke through again. Everyone was incomparably shocked. What was a genius? Yen Yunluan gave the best explanation. His own strength was great, and his talents were astonishing. Once he had the opportunity, he would break through. Kacha. 9 streaks of blood-colored lightning were like 9 vicious dragons. They were as thick as a palace as they twisted about, piercing through the void and creating a scorching expanse. 9 black holes suddenly appeared. 9 streaks of blood-colored lightning radiance all struck towards Yi Fan. The heavenly tribulation had begun, submerging him as soon as it arrived. This is controlled by someone. Someone cried out in alarm. Yen Yunluan was extremely calm. Even though he was crossing tribulation, he wasn't scared at all. He drew upon the heavens' heavenly punishment to destroy Yi Fan here. Kacha kacha. Then 9 by 9, 80 streaks of blood-colored lightning rushed out. They interweaved together, forming a lightning cage that pressed forward. Using a human's will to control a portion of the heavenly punishment's power. Everyone cried out in alarm. An ordinary person wouldn't even be able to protect themselves under these circumstances, so how could they enter the lightning cage? However, Yen Yunluan drew upon the heavenly tribulation, turning it into a cage for him to use. Boom. 81 streaks of scarlet lightning hacked over together, forming a cage that was like a small palace. It was mysterious and unfathomable, but it was extremely unstable. After all, this was lightning tribulation, and no one could truly control it. Yi Fan was like a flood dragon, swimming in the sea of lightning. No one knew what he was feeling at this moment, but seeing that he was not in a sorry state, it seemed that he could still persist. Whoosh! The cage was like a heavenly prison, sealing off all 4 directions. Finally, it surrounded him, wanting to seal him within. Endless arcs of lightning poured down, striking towards the inside. Terrifying, this is heaven's punishment. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines, and their hair stood on end. At this moment, nothing existed anymore. Endless great cracks appeared on the great earth, forming great valleys. The sea of lightning was expanding, surging downwards. It was a scene of doomsday. Yen Yunluan stood proudly at the center of the sea of lightning. No matter how many bolts of lightning danced about, he didn't feel any fear at all. He looked down at Yi Fan with a cold smile on his face as he waved his tribulation, wanting to suppress him. Everyone's hair stood on end. Who would dare to be so careless against such a lightning storm? Who could safely endure it? This was the special privilege of monsters. Only when they broke through would they attract heaven's punishment, proving how powerful and extraordinary they were. This world was very fair. Although 9 out of 10 people would die after receiving the test of the heavens, and their bodies and souls would be destroyed at every turn, once they passed the tribulation, their strength would definitely be much greater than those of the same level. This was also the reason why they were called monsters. They had obtained the acknowledgement of the heavens and experienced the tempering of the world's will. They were naturally extraordinary people. Boom. Suddenly, the cage formed by interweaving lightning released a loud sound. 81 streaks of blood-colored lightning were destroyed, and Yi Fan rushed out. He hadn't been injured at all. This little lord is indeed extraordinary. He doesn't just rely on the power of the Thousand Deaths bow. He himself is also very powerful. Everyone was astonished. To be able to break out of this lightning storm was already a heaven-defying performance. However, they didn't know if he would be able to escape in the end. Yi Fan was very calm. This sea of lightning couldn't harm him, and compared to his heaven's punishment, there was still a difference. A divine light shone in his eyes, and a bold idea appeared in his mind. Although heaven's punishment was terrifying, it was also a kind of opportunity. He wanted to borrow Yi Fan's heaven's punishment to attract his dragon transformation heaven's punishment. He wanted to use this to break through and ascend to a completely new domain. Humph! Yen Yunhuan coldly snorted. Seeing that Yi Fan was fine, he walked through the air, drawing over tens of thousands of streaks of lightning. He wanted to personally control the sky full of lightning to turn Yi Fan into ashes. Rumble! At this moment, there was no sun, moon, or stars. There were no other living things in the world. There was only a boundless sea of lightning. It was like a surging ocean, shocking people's souls. Boom! It was like the rumbling of the divine drums of the celestial court. The mountains and rivers all trembled, and in the distance, many mountains collapsed from the shock waves. The earth cracked and was destroyed beyond recognition. This was the power of heaven and earth. It was merciless and terrifying, making people's hearts go cold. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long since turned into ashes, unable to persist any longer. In the distance, everyone shivered inwardly. Many people broke out in cold sweat, and their clothes were all soaked. This kind of power of heaven and earth was not something ordinary people could resist. Too terrifying. Once one goes in, they will definitely be turned into charcoal. Even Saint Children level characters will find it hard to escape. The austere atmosphere spread, and people felt a chill in their hearts. If it was them, how could they face it? They most likely had no way to face the might of heaven's punishment alone. Yen Yunhuan closed in, and sure enough he brought tens of thousands of streaks of lightning with him, submerging Yi Fan. Outsiders couldn't see what was happening, and everyone thought that things were looking grim for him. Within the sea of lightning, silver snakes danced chaotically. Black light swam about, and scarlet multicolored light gushed out. All kinds of enormous streaks of lightning formed a world of heaven's punishment, destroying everything and breaking through all obstructions. Yen Yunhuan sneered, using his powerful physique to resist the lightning tribulation. He stared at the center of the lightning, believing that Yi Fan couldn't hold on any longer, and was about to turn into ashes. However, right at this time, his expression suddenly became sluggish. He saw Yi Fan walk out step by step, allowing the tens of thousands of streaks of lightning to descend on his body. He was completely fearless. Your heaven's punishment is still a bit lacking. Let the lightning storm come a bit more ferocious. Yi Fan said calmly, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll. When Yen Yunhuan heard these words, his expression immediately changed. He felt that something wasn't right. The other party was actually unharmed. Could it be that he was also a monster that crossed the heaven's punishment? Ah! He released a loud roar, piercing through the sea of lightning and straight into the clouds. His head of black hair stood on end, dancing about chaotically. At this moment, an even greater heaven's punishment descended, and it was actually 5-colored lightning radiance. Yi Fan had a faint smile on his face. He stood in front of him, allowing the heaven's punishment to descend. He was completely fearless as he walked forward. The tens of thousands of streaks of lightning couldn't stop his footwork. Endless lightning radiance surged like a great river, as if a stellar domain was falling. It was a boundless expanse swallowing Yi Fan within. Yen Yunhuan himself felt a bit strained as he stared at the other side. However, not long after, Yi Fan walked out again. There wasn't a single scorch mark on his body. It's still not enough. The heaven's punishment is too weak. Let the lightning storm come a bit more ferocious. Yi Fan said. When Yen Yunhuan heard these words, he was so angry he wanted to vomit blood. This was heaven's punishment. Even holy child-level characters would have to suffer grievances if they entered. If it was too long, they would definitely be struck to death. However, there was a little overlord that he loathed incomparably, who relied on external objects. He was like an undying cockroach, continuously walking out from the sea of lightning, making the heavens' punishment ineffective. Yin Yunwan was furious. He didn't hold back at all, releasing the aura of his heaven's punishment. The heaven's punishment was like a sea, descending from all directions. Many Tao marks appeared, interweaving with the lightning radiance. However, after 6 or 7 great tribulations descended, Yifan still walked out from the sea of lightning, walking over step by step, extremely calm and unperturbed, not destroyed within. Little swallow, can you do it or not? Be a bit more ferocious. Yifan urged. Yin Yunwan was now truly furious. What was heaven's punishment? It destroyed all things in this world, summoned lightning punishment to destroy the enemy. Yet in the end, he was ridiculed like this, a single little swallow making his fiery hat 3 zhang tall. Dang! A bell sound rang through the sea of lightning. A great bell formed from dark light vaguely took form, releasing exceptionally terrifying thunder sounds. What is that? Yin Yunwan used a strand of his own divine will to enter the sea of lightning, controlling the lightning, forming a lightning tribulation divine bell. There wasn't a single person whose expression didn't change. This bell was extremely indistinct, but it had a set scale. 10,000 streaks of lightning interweaved, lightly shaking, destroying all things. Dang! The great bell formed from dark light and lightning radiance lightly trembled. Tens of thousands of streaks of lightning radiance rushed out, all of them descending, landing at Yifan's side. Then dark light appeared in tens of thousands of streaks, submerging him like a raging sea. Outsiders couldn't see anything, only an expanse of blazing lightning radiance. Enter the heavenly tribulation. Be used by me. Everyone was horrified. This was the first time they saw this type of method. There wasn't a single person who wasn't shaken up. When this type of trump card was used against the enemy, it was simply a fatal blow. Yifan also felt a wave of shock. Turns out heavenly tribulation could be guided over like this. It was a bit mysterious after all. It made him feel a bit moved and enlightened. This bell was unordinary after all. With a shake, heaven and earth shattered, its form becoming more and more clear. Yifan's palm slapped outwards, and with a loud dang sound, bell waves wreaking havoc. In the distance, large amounts of barren mountains were like paper, unable to take a single blow. They collapsed and sank, completely destroyed, no longer existing. Lightning as form, natural laws as spirit. This type of great bell can destroy all things. Many people sighed in admiration. Wang! The great bell trembled, falling down, submerging Yifan within, covering him below. His figure couldn't be seen anymore. Yin Yunwan's methods are heaven-defying, activating the lightning tribulation divine bell, almost able to sweep through the younger generation, who can break through it. Unfortunately, heavenly tribulation can't happen often. Rumor has it that the Eastern Wasteland's monster is also proficient in using heavenly tribulation to destroy enemies. I wonder how the two will compare? There are only some rumors about that Eastern Wasteland's monster. The distance is too great, so there is no way to understand him. Yin Yunwan is right before our eyes. Yet he even produced the lightning tribulation divine bell. Unimaginable. Dang. A bell sound rang through heaven and earth. Large amounts of barren mountains collapsed. Yifan walked out again. That lightning tribulation divine bell had been blasted apart by his bare hands. Yin Yunwan almost coughed out blood. Heavenly tribulation, this type of fatal blow, actually couldn't do anything to this little suzerain, leaving him about to go crazy. Yi Zhoutian still hasn't died appearing again. Everyone was shocked. Right at this time, heaven and earth became chaotic. 9-5 lightning tribulation, 5 elements heavenly tribulation, great yin true tribulation, water and fire tribulation. All types of heavenly punishments covered heaven and earth, all of them hacking down. Everything within a range of several dozen li was submerged. Nothing could be seen. Those two figures were indistinct, unable to be seen clearly. They were both resisting the tribulation within the lightning radiance. Yin Yunwan is too terrifying. actually drawing down such a great heavenly tribulation. Even half-step experts wouldn't be able to withstand it. Worthy of being a monster, able to draw down such a terrifying heavenly punishment. Everyone cried out in alarm. There wasn't a single person who wasn't fearful. This type of enemy was too terrifying. If they provoked him, he would bring down a heavenly tribulation, and it would truly be difficult to contend against. Motherfucker, I didn't bring it down. This was what Yin Yunwan wanted to curse out the most at this moment. Puh. He was hacked until his entire body was scorched black, flying out several hundred zhang. However, he was quickly submerged by the water and fire tribulation again. Immediately afterwards, his entire body flowed with lightning radiance. He endured the intense pain and stood up from the void, but he was quickly blasted flying again. Something's not right. Yin Yunwan seems to have been blasted flying by his own lightning tribulation. Could it be that he is going to break through 2 cultivation realms, drawing down the most powerful heavenly punishment? Everyone discovered with shock that Yin Yunwan was in an extremely sorry state. He was sent flying, struck back and forth, seriously injured. This child is too daring. The heavenly tribulation he triggered most likely exceeded what he could endure. It seems like he really wants to break through 2 levels. Many people speculated like this. In the Sea of Lightning, Yin Yunwan even felt like crying. How was this the great heavenly tribulation he triggered? It was that bastard on the other side who was crossing tribulation. Only lightning radiance was endless, completely submerged. The outside world couldn't see anything at all. Chapter 577. The world was covered in a vast expanse of white. Silver snakes danced about chaotically and lightning radiance was everywhere like a vast ocean. It was many times more powerful than before. At this moment, Yin Yunwan felt like crying. Who was facing the tribulation? Why was everything the other way around? He had become a supporting character, accompanying Yi Fan to face the heavenly punishment. There wasn't just one dragon in the sky, but tens of thousands of them. Each bolt of lightning was as thick as a mountain ridge. They danced about in the air, and were no different from dragons. At this moment, Yi Fan sat cross-legged in the air. He was submerged in the sea of lightning, resisting the tribulation while capturing the Tao marks within. He was actually comprehending the Tao. Yin Yunwan gritted his teeth, and used all of his strength to resist the lightning tribulation. His body had long since been covered in many charred marks, and he had suffered serious injuries. Whoosh! He soared into the sky and wanted to leave this place. He could tell that Yi Fan was using him to attract the tribulation to break through here. He was just accompanying the crown prince. I can't take this. This was what he was thinking. He had seen freaks before, but he had never seen someone as freakish as this. Each bolt of lightning was thicker than a mountain ridge, and there were tens of thousands of them. Even half-step experts would be hacked to death if they came in. Yi Fan opened his eyes and pointed with his finger. A divine will shot out from between his brows and entered the sea of lightning, drawing down tens of thousands of bolts of lightning. In the air a golden bell formed. It was completely condensed from golden lightning, and of course there were many patterns on it. These were the laws of heaven and earth. Yi Fan was moved and also formed a lightning tribulation divine bell. However, it was much more condensed than Yin Yunwan's. It was forged from the true sun tribulation, and golden light rushed into the heavens. The heavenly tribulation contained endless Tao marks, and they immediately imprinted themselves on it. The bell became more and more resplendent, and it became as tall as a small mountain. With a loud sound, the sound traveled hundreds of miles and suppressed Yin Yunwan. Dang! The sound of the bell was long and drawn out. It was grand, harmonious, and profound. It was like the ringing of a great bell. And the world became peaceful. However, the lightning became even more intense. This was especially the case within the bell. Yin Yunwan was struck by the lightning, and his body released white smoke. He was almost hacked to pieces, and his entire body was in intense pain. Yin Yun's reputation is well-deserved, truly a genius of a generation. In this type of situation, he produced another lightning tribulation divine bell, even more so than before, using this to protect himself. This child's methods are heaven-defying. This lightning tribulation divine bell has the marks of the heavens imprinted on it, and the patterns are endless. It even reflects the laws that appeared in the Sea of Lightning. Everyone sighed in admiration. They all thought that this was a lightning tribulation divine bell to Yen Luan to protect himself. Yen Yunluan really was about to cry. None of this had anything to do with him. He was suppressed by the great bell, and was about to die. Endless lightning radiance surrounded his body, and he couldn't stop it at all. Dang! The great bell sounded in a long and drawn-out manner, ringing through heaven and earth. Everyone released another wave of praise. However, Yen Yunluan inside the divine bell was dispirited and listless, as if he was about to be roasted alive. That's fine as well. I'll leave him half dead and half alive. Let others think that he is facing tribulation. Meanwhile, I can peacefully break through here. Yi Fan made his decision, making this type of decision. Yi Fan sat in the Sea of Lightning. His back was like a dragon, continuously releasing essence energy. The great vertebra was even about to fly out. This was the sign of dragon transformation. This secret realm was extremely fitting of its name. A great dragon was nurtured within the body, taking form. Meanwhile, the great dragon in the human body was precisely the vertebra, and all of one's power depended on it. A dragon cry sounded. Yi Fan's body released pai-pa sounds. His entire vertebra was resplendent like gold. Every single great bone moving, as if a barbaric dragon was reviving. The dragon tribulation finally descended. It wasn't as great as he had imagined, not much different from before. However, Yi Fan still felt a horrifying aura. 9981 heavenly dragons rushed over. This wasn't just similar but completely identical. The dragon-shaped lightning seemed to have a life of its own, releasing dragon cries as it threw itself over. Pung pung. Yi Fan opened his eyes and sat in the air, resisting the heavenly dragons. In a split second, his flesh was lacerated. Although it wasn't the boundless Sea of Lightning, it was even more terrifying. Great Dragon Tribulation. This stage of dragon transformation is so difficult. Yi Fan's heart was pounding. He was already half a step into dragon transformation, and had already taken one step into it. However, with the arrival of the tribulation, he finally understood how difficult it was. 81 heavenly dragons were vivid and lifelike, coiling in the air. The heads of the dragons were facing him, as if they had existed since time immemorial, emitting a mysterious and demonic aura. No one knew how many years had it been since such a tribulation had appeared. People had always thought that it was only a legend, but today, Yi Fan had personally experienced it. In the distance, the boundless Sea of Lightning surged, but it didn't dare to approach this place. All of the lightning seemed to have a spirit, incomparably fearful of these 81 heavenly dragons. In the ancient books, it was recorded that the Great Dragon Tribulation was extremely mysterious. It was imprinted in the Sea of Lightning by the blood of the ancient heavenly dragons, nourishing it into a great tribulation. Yi Fan had long expected that when breaking through the stage of the Great Mystery area, the heavenly punishment would be very unusual. However, he didn't expect that it would be the Great Dragon Tribulation that had been passed down since ancient times. 81 heavenly dragons coiled around, forcing the Sea of Lightning to retreat, leaving behind a vacuum, trapping him within. Roar! A dragon roar shook the 9 heavens and the 9 underworlds, spreading throughout the land. The first ancient heavenly dragon rushed over, no longer probing attacks like before. At this moment, the dragon's head was like a mountain, and its horns were like sacred weapons. It directly crashed over. With that kind of momentum, it really wanted to slaughter even the immortals, pressing forward with indomitable will. Yi Fan had no way to avoid this. This was a tribulation, and he had to face it. There was no use running away. He had to withstand it, otherwise he would only be turned into ashes. Boom. Both of his fists were dripping with blood, and electric arcs were circling around him as he clashed with the dragon. The entire sky trembled, unable to withstand this kind of pressure. Did you guys hear that? There's a dragon roar coming out. Those people in the distant sky were astonished. Their eyes couldn't penetrate the Sea of Lightning, and they couldn't see the scene in the center. They all revealed suspicious expressions. Yen Yunwan is indeed amazing. Is he crossing the tribulation? With the dragon roar accompanying him, he can most likely break through 2 realms in one go. Even now, there were still some people sighing in admiration. They didn't know that the person crossing the tribulation had already changed the main character. At this moment, Yen Yunhuan wanted to cry, but no tears came out. His whole body was scorched, and he was about to be roasted. It was truly unbearable to be trapped inside the thunder tribulation divine bell. Fortunately, this time's tribulation was extraordinary. It was as if it had a divine soul, almost draining the power of the Sea of Lightning, and producing 81 heavenly dragons to deal with Yi Fan. Otherwise, Yen Yunhuan would have already been turned into ashes. In this short instant, Yi Fan and the 6 heavenly dragons were fighting. The thunder tribulation came down, and all the bones in his body were cracking. How powerful was his physical body! If it was someone else, they would have long become bone dregs. Dragon transformation. Yi Fan gradually found a way and found a chance of survival in a hopeless situation. He tried his best to break into the dragon transformation secret realm. His spine turned into a golden divine dragon and swallowed the heavenly dragon's essence energy. Pai pai pa pa. The sound in the void was incessant. The 81 heavenly dragons coiled around and swallowed the essence energy. However, they were all gathered by his spine and tempered into golden bones. The joints were constantly moving. Dang! Yi Fan took out the myriad chi cauldron again and crossed the tribulation with him. The 81 heavenly dragons were almost all sucked in, and the aura of the birth of all living things circulated. He had already discovered that it was impossible to destroy these 81 heavenly dragons. However, there was also a chance of survival in a hopeless situation. He only needed to exhaust their essence energy and cross the tribulation to strengthen himself. At this moment, Yi Fan's hands were moving. His hands embraced the moon and pushed the mountain, forming the Taiji. Not long after, he imitated the 10,000 transformations sacred art that Hua Yunfei had used before. He wanted to turn the 81 heavenly dragons into ordinary ones. He couldn't erase them and could only dissolve them. All the bones in his body were about to be broken. There were explosive sounds from the 81 heavenly dragons, and the joints were moving non-stop. Dang! On the other side, Yen Yunhuan finally broke through the thunder tribulation divine bell and rushed out. He was seriously injured and on the verge of death. However, Yi Fan took action again. He drew down an expanse of lightning that contained the aura of the heavenly dragons. It turned into a 9-layered pagoda and suppressed him inside. In this hurried glance, Yen Yunhuan's heart was greatly shaken. He almost didn't dare to believe his own eyes. The 81 heavenly dragons soared through the sky and swallowed the primal chaos. The scene was terrifying as they surrounded Yi Fan. Could this be the legendary Great Dragon Tribulation? He didn't have time to think about it in detail, and he didn't even have time to look carefully before he was suppressed by the thunder tribulation divine pagoda. In this sea of lightning, even the arrival of powerful existences wouldn't be enough. Yi Fan was the absolute ruler, let alone him. Did you guys see? After that bell was destroyed, Yen Yunhuan formed a thunder tribulation divine pagoda. He is skillfully handling the heavenly tribulation. He is worthy of being called a monster. I wonder how Yi Zhoutian is doing. He was sealed in the center of the Sea of Lightning. I fear that his body and soul have long been destroyed. At this time, at the center of the Sea of Lightning, a strange transformation happened. Yi Fan discovered with shock that the 81 heavenly dragons became much quieter, no longer as berserk. However, he seemed to have entered a different world. A true dragon ancient platform rose and fell. It was also formed from lightning, and it also possessed the aura of a true dragon. Apart from this, there was a palace that descended from the sky, pressing down on the sky above his head. Pavilions and halls appeared in all directions. All of them formed from interweaving lightning. What is this? Yi Fan was quite shocked. In his surroundings, it was as if an ancient heaven appeared, releasing an ancient and great change. It was as if it had experienced endless years, tens of millions of years. Lightning interweaved to form this type of building. Yi Fan was almost stupefied. It really was like a heavenly palace with 81 heavenly dragons spiraling above. What kind of heavenly tribulation is this? How come I have never heard of it? He was shocked. Suddenly he was shocked. In this ancient heaven, There were actually a few humanoid creatures, no, perhaps it should be called humanoid lightning, looking down at him from above. One of the humanoid creatures gently moved, and a huge black hole appeared. One could imagine what kind of power it contained. That is also a heavenly punishment, a humanoid lightning tribulation? He felt his blood run cold. If he faced it now, he wouldn't be able to block it even if he was dozens of times stronger. Fortunately, the humanoid creatures in that ancient heaven hadn't descended yet. Otherwise, he would have died without a doubt. Could that be the heavenly tribulation I will have to face in the future? Yi Fan was suspicious, but he couldn't think too much about it. The 81 heavenly dragons and the dragon platform rose and fell, pressing down on him. Boom! He tried his best to resist, and his physical body was almost smashed to pieces many times. His spine turned into a dragon, making creaking sounds. The myriad chi cauldron was also branded with dragon marks, and his consciousness also rushed out to refine it. In the end, he went through all 81 heavenly dragon tribulations. Yi Fan's body and soul were almost destroyed, but he managed to endure it. The 81 heavenly dragons flew into the Thunder Sea and disappeared. Damn, I remember now. The Great Dragon Tribulation has a time limit. It will be enough if I can withstand 9 heavenly dragons. Yi Fan was a little dumbfounded. He had actually completed a magnificent feat of withstanding 81 heavenly dragons in a row. It was almost unprecedented. Apart from a few great emperors, there weren't many people who could do it. Without a doubt, he had broken into the dragon transformation's secret realm. His spine was like a dragon that had come back to life. It possessed endless power, and with a slight movement, it could collapse the void. Dragon transformation first great completion. Yi Fan was shocked. After passing the Thunder Tribulation, not only did he cross the hurdle from 4 extremities to dragon transformation, but he also almost became a dragon transformation second great expert. One had to know that he did not cultivate the ancient scriptures of the dragon transformation's secret realm. Theoretically speaking, it was impossible for him to cross the next level. All of these were the benefits of the Great Dragon Tribulation. Yi Fan sat in the void and drank a few mouthfuls of divine spring water. He quickly recovered and reached the peak in an instant. He could feel an incomparable power. This was the power of a dragon transformation expert. He had finally reached this level, and he was much stronger than before. Every move he made could break the heavens. The heavenly tribulation retreated, the sea of lightning scattering. Yi Fan changed into a new set of clothes and stood up. Right now he was full of vitality. His eyes were deep, his skin sparkling, flickering with precious light, bright and flawless. On the other side, the Thunder Tribulation divine pagoda cracked, and Yen Yunhuan fell out. His body was emitting green smoke, and he was almost cooked. Oh my god, what happened? Yi Zhoutian is safe and sound, and Yen Yunhuan is about to die. What's going on? Yen Yunhuan attracted the Thunder Tribulation but failed to kill his opponent? Everyone was dumbfounded. Not long ago, they were still exclaiming for Yen Yunhuan, but now they were all dumbfounded. This guy is too evil. Ji Ziyue murmured in the distance. Her big eyes had already turned into crescent moons. Her long eyelashes trembled, and small dimples appeared on her face. Ji Haoyue was also speechless. The siblings knew the ins and outs of the situation. He mourned for Yen Yunhuan. His battle prowess was enough, so why did he have to choose the Thunder Tribulation? Little Yen is cooked. He's about to become a roast duck. On the other side, Jiang Huairan, Li Heishui, and Lu Ko gathered together. They chattered and laughed at the same time. How could this be? Qi Huishui's mouth was wide open. She felt that it was inconceivable. Did the Thunder Tribulation strike the wrong person? Why did the person fall down and another person come out alive and kicking? He even struck himself half to death during the Thunder Tribulation. His skin isn't even as thick as that wild dragon I ate. The barbarian murmured. As soon as these words came out, the people beside him immediately distanced themselves by several dozen zhang. This was a humanoid beast. If it was a competition of skin thickness, anyone would feel apprehensive, not even a monster. He's safe and sound. Princess Yudai also came. Her beautiful jade-like face was a bit surprised, and her beautiful eyes flickered with extraordinary splendor. The scene was silent. After a long time, it suddenly flared up. Everyone felt that it was inconceivable. Who can tell me what happened? Who exactly is undergoing the thunder tribulation? Why was Yen Yunwan almost struck to death? How did another person come out alive and kicking? Many people found it hard to accept. They were just praising Yen Yunwan, but in the blink of an eye, their jaws dropped. Chapter 578. Chaotic Cloud Swallow had attracted the boundless heavenly tribulation, but failed to break through. He was half crippled, and his essence chi was greatly damaged. Who knew how long it would take for him to recover? This result shocked everyone to the point that their jaws dropped to the ground. Everyone was stunned speechless. The main character was about to be struck to death by the heavenly punishment he had drawn, but the opponent walked out alive and well. He was full of energy, as if he had drunk dragon blood. Yen Yunwan's entire body was charred black as he lay there weakly. Occasionally, electricity would rush out of his body, giving off crackling sounds. However, the other person was calm and unruffled, waving at the crowd. This was a scene that made people speechless. Everything seemed to have been reversed. Many people opened their mouths, but in the end, nothing came out. This was too much of a blow. The first thing that came to Yi Fan's mind was to get rid of Yen Yunwan. However, even if that was the case, the others would already have their suspicions. The main character was half dead, but Yen Yunwan looked as if he had eaten a ginseng fruit. All the pores on his body were relaxed, and he was full of energy. The great earth was a scene of desolation. Broken mountains, great rifts, and deep abysses were everywhere. The lightning tribulation had destroyed this desolate mountain range, turning it into a barren land. In the end, Yi Fan still extended his right hand and wanted to behead Yen Yunwan. Although he was in front of everyone's eyes, he did not have any fear. At worst, he would just leave and change his appearance. An auspicious cloud floated over, golden Taoist robes fluttering about. An elder appeared with his hands behind his back, as if he was going to sprout wings and ascend to immortality. He stopped Yi Fan. "Have mercy," the elder spoke, saving Yen Yunwan. He had white hair and a youthful complexion. His spirit was hale and hearty, and one could tell with a single look that his cultivation was at the peak. Yi Fan knew him. They had met at the Feast of Peaches. The old man had even invited him to join the Cheshire Manor, but he had declined. Now that such a person had appeared, it was naturally not appropriate for him to make a move. "I see that you have an extraordinary bearing. Would you like to join the Cheshire Mansion?" "Thank you, Senior. I appreciate your kindness, but I am used to being lazy. I am afraid that I will break the rules of the Cheshire Mansion every day." Yi Fan smiled. In the distance, everyone was shocked. There was actually someone who refused the invitation of the Cheshire Manor. Even though it was tactful, it had the same effect. What kind of background does he have that even the Cheshire Manor is disdainful to enter? When has anyone ever refused? That's true. Didn't that monster from the Eastern Barren Territory not come? He also tactfully declined. Yen Yunwan suffered a crushing defeat, and was almost struck to death by his own lightning tribulation. This news shook the entire Singular Warrior Manor. Those who didn't come to watch the battle were all shocked and regretful. There was actually such a neighbor beside the Cheshire Manor. The name of the little overlord spread throughout the ancient immortal mountains. The young experts of the 5 major regions were all very surprised. At this time, a great upheaval had occurred in the immortal mansion world. The barbaric Beast King had commanded hundreds of thousands of strange beasts to wreak havoc like a flood. Many people had held on to hope and hadn't retreated, so they encountered a great calamity. During these past few days, blood dyed the stone cliffs and caves red. Many human cultivators lost their lives, becoming food for the strange beasts. The casualties were disastrous. Conservatively speaking, 90% of those who didn't retreat were devoured by the exotic beasts. Not even their bones were left. Hundreds of thousands of strange beasts appeared without end. They were like an expanse of dark clouds, yet also like a flood that overflowed into the heavens. Wherever they passed, all experts would have to withdraw, leaving nothing behind. At this time, no one dared to enter. Even the peerless emperor could only wait. The chaos of the strange beasts could endanger everyone. During these past few days, all the major powers held urgent discussions. The next time they entered the immortal mansion world, No one was allowed to hunt strange beasts. They absolutely could not provoke them. This time, the barbaric beast king was furious. He had massacred the human cultivators, mainly because many people had captured the young of strange beasts and used their true blood to refine medicine. This was a great taboo. During these past few days, many people appeared in Yi Fan's territory. They were all disciples of the singular warrior manner. They had all heard of his reputation and wanted to see what kind of divine being this little overlord was. However, not a single person came riding a spirit beast. Many people had long since heard that this person loved to eat spirit beasts. He had even eaten Qi Huanshui's Longma. Temporarily unable to enter the immortal mansion world, Yi Fan was extremely bored. He wandered around and unexpectedly discovered an immortal cliff in a neighboring territory. Many cultivators were roaming about. Among them, many were disciples of the singular warrior manner. They came here to exchange for what they needed. It was similar to a market for cultivators. This immortal cliff was over 1,000 zhang tall and abnormally steep. Mortals couldn't climb up at all. Not a single blade of grass grew here. The cliff was very vast, and all who went in and out were cultivators. This place was very extraordinary. It had existed for countless years. It was said that every time the singular warrior manor opened, this place would become a place for free exchange. It was extremely ancient. Yi Fan felt that this was very novel. He walked all around. There were pavilions made of jade, and all kinds of divine weapons and sharp blades hung from them. There were also stalls directly set up to sell all kinds of spirit medicines and ancient treasures. Finally, Yi Fan stopped in front of an old blind man. There was only a tattered straw mat on the ground, and on top of it were several dark and swarthy stones. Dragon marrow stones, peerless treasures. Don't miss out on them. The old blind man did his best to peddle them. How much origin source for one? Yi Fan squatted down and looked carefully. He weighed the stones in his hands a few times. 1,000 kilograms of origin source for one. Honest and fair price, the old blind man replied. He was wearing tattered clothes, but he was asking for an exorbitant price. Is this a special person? Yi Fan was shocked. He used his origin god eye to see through these stones. In the end, he threw them all on the ground and said, "You must have fished them out of the river not long ago, right?" 4 or 5 days ago. The old blind man didn't feel embarrassed at all. He raised his butt and took 2 steps forward. He said mysteriously, "Little brother, let me tell you. I really do have treasures here. I don't know if you can afford them." Yi Fan's heart jumped. He found a stone under the old liar's butt. It was still dark and swarthy, but it contained a few drops of dragon marrow. "I'll buy them." He took out a xenogenic origin source that was worth 5,000 kilograms of pure origin source. The old blind man sat down on the stone and said, "Okay, but don't tell anyone." He took out a map and handed it over. Yi Fan was speechless. This old man was definitely doing this on purpose. He had revealed his treasures, but what he was selling was something else. He didn't need some stupid map at all. "I want to buy the black stone under your butt." "Oh, you mean this? I just fished it out of the river not long ago. It's quite comfortable to sit on. I'm not selling it." Yi Fan resisted the urge to rob him and asked, "What map are you selling?" "She'll lower your voice. If people find out, they'll fight over it. This is an immortal burial map," the old blind man said mysteriously. He unfolded a crumpled map and placed it on the straw mat. "Do you see this? This is a treasure map of the immortal mansion world. It contains the mysteries of the great emperor's ancient scriptures." Yi Fan squatted in front of the straw mat and looked at it carefully. He was a bit surprised. He had entered and exited some of these places before. They were very accurate. "Do you see this? There's a skull mark here. You definitely can't go there, or you'll die without a doubt. Also, there's an immortal mark here. Do you know what this is? It's the place where the great emperor passed away in meditation. There's an ancient scripture there," the old blind man said mysteriously. "Aren't you blind? How can you tell me?" Yi Fan rolled his eyes. This old liar was lying through his teeth. "I've cultivated the heavenly eye. Naturally, I can see it." The old man was very natural and didn't blush at all. Yi Fan stood up. He didn't want to argue with him anymore. This was an old liar. How could he fall for it? Let me tell you, if you miss it, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. This map contains the secrets of the great emperor scripture. It might also be the Wuxia scripture, or the undying heaven art. Take the map and find it yourself. Young man, don't be in a hurry to leave. How about this? You can go and verify it first. See if I'm telling the truth or not. Then come back and buy the map. The old liar pointed at a location on the map. There was also a mark on it, but it was very blurry. He said, although this place can't be considered an immortal land, a saint passed away here. It's very suitable for comprehending the Tao. Yi Fan was startled. That place was the place where the ancient saint transformed into the Tao. Even the small blue lake and the straight stone mountain were marked. He looked at this old liar strangely. Could it be that this guy was really selling the immortal burial map? Not to mention the other places that were marked. Just this place of transforming into the Tao was very ordinary. How much is this map? 5,000 kilograms of pure source. Why don't you go rob someone? Yi Fan really wanted to do something disrespectful to him. This is even at a discount. Otherwise, I was planning to sell it for 50,000 kilograms of source. The old blind man was calm and unhurried. I'll buy 50 kilograms of pure source. Yi Fan said. How about this? Just give me 8,000 kilograms of source. Is it more than that? This map is only worth 100 kilograms of source. Young man, you have to be honest. 7,000 kilograms of source can't be any less. The two of them bickered endlessly. In the end, Yi Fan couldn't stand him anymore. He threw down 5,000 kilograms of source and left. I'll sell it to you cheaply this time. Come often in the future. The old blind man waved his hand behind him. I'll just take it as I've been tricked once. Yi Fan left without looking back. He found a place with no one around, and began to study it carefully. The immortal burial ground was marked with an immortal ascending. It was located in the depths of the wild world, and the terrain was complicated. It was a place that led to the heavens. There were actually blurry handwriting of the undying heavenly emperor, the southern mountains heavenly emperor, the grand sovereign, and Wuxia. This old liar really dared to write it. Yi Fan looked at it for a while, and then kept the map. He was prepared to take a closer look when he entered the immortal estate again. Not long after, he turned to a place not far from the old blind man's stall. This caused him to grit his teeth. This old fellow was very strange. It didn't take long for him to pull someone over. At first, those people were impatient, but very quickly, they all began to bargain with him to buy the map. Yi Fan patiently counted. In less than an hour, he had already sold over 10 immortal burial maps. The cheapest one was sold for 500 kilograms of source, and the most expensive one was sold for 5,000 kilograms. This old liar, this kind of map has already been mass-produced to such a degree. Yi Fan completely discovered that there was a thick stack of no less than 1,000 maps under the straw mat. Every map was old and looked tattered. They looked very ancient and really had a trace of the immortal burial map. This old liar put a few broken stones there. He's really selling dog meat under a sheep's head. In such a short period of time, he has already earned tens of thousands of kilograms of source. When the old liar sold 30 maps, there was suddenly a huge commotion. The people from the Great Xia Empire came, and there was actually a supreme expert among them. The old blind man rolled up the tattered straw mat and ran. He directly jumped down the immortal cliff and disappeared without a trace. Where did he go? He actually sold this kind of secret map in public. Who exactly is he? The imperial uncle of the Great Xia Empire was very angry. Yi Fan was shocked. He clenched the ancient map in his hand tightly. This might really be an immortal burial map. That old liar was really somewhat mysterious. Chapter 579. The old swindler was very slippery, diving down the cliff and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Many people from the Grand Xia Empire had come. The leader wore a crown of 9 dragons and a purple dragon robe. He looked quite heroic, draconic chi swirling around his body. His powerful divine sense swept over the cliff, but he didn't see anything. Where is he? The Grand Xia Imperial uncle's face sank. Where did you buy the immortal burial map? One of the commander-like figures pushed out a cultivator, who had bought an old map. He was here just now. The person trembled as he walked over to where the blind old man had been sitting and picked up a few cobblestones. He sold these too, 500 kilograms each. This cliff was very wide, and many cultivators came and went. There were simple stalls, as well as beautiful jade palaces. Everyone was alarmed and looked over. He can't have run far, chase him. The Grand Xia imperial uncle was the first to jump down the cliff and chase in a certain direction. The others also moved. What's going on? What happened? The people from the central prefectures for eternal empires have come. How unexpected. Just now there was an old blind man selling the immortal burial map. Not long after, everyone on the cliff knew what had happened. The map that the blind old man had sold had shaken the people of the Grand Xia Empire. It's a real map, not a fake. People discovered to their shock that this was a secret map that had been circulated for some reason. Currently, only a few superpowers seem to have it. I understand. Maybe there really is an ancient scripture left behind by the Grand Emperor. That's why the people of the Grand Xia Empire are so nervous. That's their ancestor. Recently, all sorts of people had entered and exited the immortal burial world, exploring many secret areas. However, it was still very difficult to draw a secret map like this. It must have taken a lot of effort. Someone discovered the place where the ancient emperor died in meditation. The next time we enter the immortal burial world, it will definitely be incomparably tragic. Many people will fight over it. However, people quickly realized that that place was most likely extremely dangerous. Otherwise, why would they need to bring the map out? They could just directly take away everything the ancient emperor had left behind. The cliff was in chaos. No one could calm down. This was a shocking immortal burial ground. There would most likely be ancient scriptures and even holy weapons. Where did the blind old man go? Who bought his map just now? On top of the cliff, everyone was searching. Just now, there were more than 30 people who bought the map. Now they all ran away, feeling that it was too much of a pity. Yi Fan put away the immortal burial map and strolled around the free market. He wondered what kind of background this old blind man had to sell 1,000 of these treasure maps. Only after 4 hours did the place return to normal. There was no need to think too much about it. This matter could not be hidden. There would definitely be many people thinking of ways to obtain the immortal burial diagram. Isn't that Xiao Mingyuan? Yi Fan saw a familiar person, the grandson of Grand Preceptor Xiao of Anping Country, who came from the same dynasty as Princess Yu Dai. Yi Fan's fief originally belonged to the Xiao clan, but Xiao Mingyuan had laid a trap for him. He used the place where the ancient emperor built his cottage in his later years as bait, hoping that he would lose his life in the desolate cottage. That bastard. Yi Fan did not go over. He squatted in front of a stall, fiddling with a caged spirit beast while sizing up a few people nearby. There were several experts by Xiao Mingyuan's side, constantly inquiring about the blind old man. Clearly, they had come for the immortal burial diagram, and wanted a share of the spoils. It seems that once the Beast King rampage in the immortal mansion world stops, there will definitely be a rain of blood and foul winds. The ancient emperor's divine stash will attract countless experts. Yi Fan pondered for a long time. At this time, he vaguely heard Xiao Mingyuan mention his name and Lu City. It seemed that this person was still thinking about him. Not long after, those people left. Yi Fan looked at their backs and smiled coldly, not paying them much attention. Now that he had entered the dragon transformation secret realm, and had grasped the Rho formula, he had nothing to fear. Treasure-seeking rat, a genuine treasure-seeking spirit beast. I'll sell it for 2,500 kilograms of source. In front of a stall, a middle-aged man was sitting on the ground. A small metal cage contained a small rat that flowed with multicolored light. Many people crowded over, clicking their tongues in wonder. However, one of them sneered coldly and said, "He's here to scam people again. He fed a few wild rats with spirit herbs, and he dares to pretend to be a treasure-seeking rat?" That's right. The day before yesterday, he sold 18 of them in a single day. A treasure-seeking rat might not even be born in thousands of years. How could he sell so many of them all at once? In this place, people are willing to be beaten, and buying and selling is all voluntary. Everyone be careful. Don't fall for his tricks. Many people were discussing and pointing at them. Yi Fan was speechless. There were so many scammers in this place. Although that blind old man had sold the immortal burial diagram, he did not seem like a good person. Suddenly, Yi Fan was startled. He had seen an old friend. Duan swayed his big butt, squeezing the people beside him to the side. He arrived in front of the stall and squatted down. This rat, why is it so shifty-eyed? How refreshing. Isn't a rat shifty-eyed? The middle-aged man at the stall rolled his eyes. When Yi Fan saw Duanda, he couldn't help but grin. A few days ago, he had stripped this fatty naked and taken away a pile of treasures. Now that they met again, he couldn't help but want to laugh out loud. However, in the end, he could only twitch his mouth and suppress this impulse. However, his cheeks were sore because of this. I'm saying that this rat's eyes are too shifty. It doesn't look like a treasure-seeking rat, but more like a rat spirit. Duanda shook his head. Those who know what's good will definitely buy it. Yesterday those people all fought to buy it. Now only this one is left. The middle-aged man was unhurried. You've really gotten addicted to scamming people. If this thing was a treasure-seeking rat, would you be willing to sell it? Someone said with disdain. I won't lie. Who would sell a real treasure-seeking rat with 5,000 kilograms of source? No one would sell it even if it was 10 times or 100 times. The middle-aged man was calm and unruffled. He said, this is a descendant of the treasure-seeking rat. If you raise it well, maybe in 1,000 years, a god rat will be born. In 1,000 years, there won't be a god rat. Duanda threw down a few xenogenic sources and said, I'm buying it. I have other uses for it. What is this fatty going to do? Yi Fan was suspicious. He thought he was going to take the celestial graveyard. After walking around the cliff for half a day, Yi Fan left. He returned to Lu City and descended. Boom. Suddenly, an endless amount of murderous intent rushed up. The entire city was shining. All the spell patterns were activated, and an infinite amount of sword lights swept towards him. Yi Fan was shocked. Someone had taken control of Lu City and made all the ancient spell patterns appear on the walls. They wanted to kill him, the city master. Swoosh. He was like a ray of light. After many disillusionments, he rushed out. He wasn't trapped, and he wasn't pierced by the sword lights. All of this was because of the magic of the travel formula. Otherwise, if a half-step elite came and couldn't break through the spell patterns of the ancient city, it wouldn't bode well for them. Who is it? Yi Fan stood in the sky and looked down at everything in Lu City. This kid has reached the dragon transformation secret realm. His cultivation is rising fast. A middle-aged man with a cold expression appeared on the city wall. So you're the one who robbed my Xiao family's city and injured my Xiao family's disciples? Another person stood out with a cold smile on his face. Yi Fan's expression was calm. He recognized them. He had seen them before. Not long ago, he had been with Xiao Mingyuan. He didn't need to say anything to understand what was going on. What are you talking about? Kill him. We still have to find the celestial graveyard map. This is my city. You guys barged in and attacked me. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? Yi Fan said calmly. Who do you think you are? This city has belonged to the Xiao family since ancient times. We just let you stay for 2 days. We will take it back after we kill you. Another person glanced at him with disdain. Do you really want to eat me up like this? Yi Fan stared at them. 2 of them were Tier 6 Dragon Transformation experts, 3 were Tier 7 Dragon Transformation experts, and the last 2 were Tier 8 Dragon Transformation experts. One of them said calmly without any emotion, You hurt my Xiao family's children and still dare to stay here for so long. You don't know what's good for you. We will take the city. Kneel and kowtow to ask for forgiveness. We won't make things difficult for you. We will just chop off your head. We won't let you suffer. The 7 of them flew out of the ancient city, pressing forward step by step. They did not underestimate him. These 7 experts attacked together, wanting to kill him in an instant. Yi Fan did not say anything more. His hands were overflowing with colors. He held the 1,000 Slayers' bow and stood there. At this moment, he continuously activated the secret of all. After dozens of times, he finally succeeded. He increased his combat power tenfold. The 1,000 slayers' bow shone brightly. The bowstring trembled slightly. A total of 3 arrows were shot out. They were extremely fast and rushed toward a Tier 6 dragon transformation expert. Clang. At first, there was a clanging sound of impact. But soon after, there was a scream. The arrows pierced through the ancient treasure and pierced into his body. None of the 3 arrows missed. They all pierced into his body. He could not block them at all. They were like dry weeds and rotten wood. Pooh, pooh, pooh. 3 flowers of blood bloomed. Then this person exploded with a boom. Bone fragments and minced meat splattered everywhere. His body and spirit were destroyed. What? The people at the side were shocked. They did not expect someone to die so quickly. Yi Fan laughed coldly. He did not need to use the secret of all to kill a cultivator of the 6th dragon transformation. Not to mention, his combat power had been increased 10-fold. Don't you want to kill me? He held the 1,000 slayers' bow in his hand. His expression was cold. He continued to quickly draw the bow and shoot these people. Puff, puff. The next moment, he shot 9 arrows consecutively. He also activated the secret of all. This time, a strong cultivator of the 7th dragon transformation was shot. He could not block the power of these divine arrows and was crushed on the spot. The expressions of the remaining people had long changed. They scattered in all directions. One by one, they took out their treasures and slashed at Yi Fan. The situation was extremely serious. They felt that things were not good. The young man in front of them was too decisive in killing people. He actually had such combat power. This made them feel a serious threat, and their hearts were in chaos. Yi Fan's expression was cold. He used the traveling formula to dodge quickly. He then continuously drew his bow and shot arrows. This time, he shot a total of 108 arrows. Among them, 18 had activated the secret of all. They were all shot toward a strong cultivator of the 8th dragon transformation. Dang, dang. The strong cultivator of the 8th dragon transformation was indeed powerful. He continuously blocked and destroyed many arrows. However, he could not destroy the 18 special arrows. He was in a sorry state. If Yi Fan had not advanced to the dragon transformation secret realm, it would have been difficult to kill him. However, things were different now. He drew his bow again. Another 18 divine arrows were successfully activated. The 36 special divine arrows were powerful enough to shake mountains. They contained an unparalleled divine power. Their killing intent soared to the sky. Each arrow was more than 10 miles long. It was extremely terrifying as they flew here and there. Puff, puff. Finally, the strong cultivator of the 8th dragon transformation could not block anymore. He was continuously hit by the arrows. He let out a blood-curdling scream and turned into a bloody mist on the spot. Not even a piece of bone was left. The others were all stunned. This was a strong cultivator of the 8th dragon transformation. How could he not be killed by Yi Fan so quickly? What kind of method was this? It was too abnormal. At this moment, the ancient treasures that they had taken out were all pierced by the divine arrows. They turned into dust. Not a single one was left. Go. Another strong cultivator of the 8th dragon transformation turned around and fled. The others were already frightened. They all fled, and no one dared to stop. Didn't you want to kill me? Since you're here, don't leave. Yi Fan's words were calm. He chased after them closely. Everyone quickly separated, but they still could not solve anything. They could not escape from the shadow of death. This was because Yi Fan had learned the Xing formula. His speed was unparalleled. They could not escape. Moreover, the arrows shot by the 1,000 slayers' bow could not stop until they hit their target. Puff! Flowers of blood bloomed. It was sad and beautiful. Ah! A blood-curdling scream was heard. Puff! Not long after, another beautiful flower flew out. Just as the scream was heard, it was extinguished again. Another person was torn into pieces. Along the way, Yi Fan killed all 7 of them. Not a single one escaped. He sneered. Carrying the 1,000 slayers' bow on his back, he flew straight to the Qishir Manor. He stood guard on a mountain peak outside. A day later, he finally saw Xiao Mingyuan again. There was actually a half-step expert beside him. However, Yi Fan did not retreat. He drew his bow and began to shoot. Who is it? The half-step expert was extremely vigilant. He immediately discovered him and quickly rushed over. It's Yu Yizhoutian. Xiao Mingyuan was shocked. He did not think that he would dare to do this. Running to the Qishir Manor to kill him was truly audacious. That's right, it's me. Yi Fan used the Xing formula to avoid the half-step expert. He did not want to come into contact with him. After all, there was a great secret realm between them. You really have guts to dare come here. Xiao Mingyuan naturally knew why he had come. However, he did not think that he would be so domineering. He directly killed his way to the Qishir Manor and shouted, "Sixth uncle, kill him. Don't let him go." The half-step expert was furious. Yi Fan's speed was too fast. He could not catch up at all. There was no way to kill him. Xiao Mingyuan, I'll send you on your way. Yi Fan did not waste any time. The 1,000 Slayers' bow trembled slightly. Divine rainbows shot out one after the other. A total of 49 arrows pierced through the void. The half-step expert was very powerful. Even though he was standing right in front of him, he could not stop him. The 49 arrows shot out like meteors in all directions. In the end they converged at one point. Xiao Mingyuan. No. Sixth uncle, save me. But it was too late. This was the terrifying part of the 1,000 Slayers' bow. Yi Fan had only recently figured it out. Once he locked onto his target, he did not need to shoot the arrow in a straight line to kill his enemy. Now, Yi Fan had entered the Dragon Transformation secret realm. Killing Xiao Mingyuan naturally did not require much effort. Shooting all 49 arrows at once was like carving his name in the book of life and death. Pft, pft. Ah! Xiao Mingyuan only had time to let out a miserable scream before he was torn apart by the divine arrows. His body turned into mud and then into mist. He died a violent death. Chapter 580. Xiao Mingyuan screamed miserably. His head, limbs, and body immediately shattered. Blood flowed, and in the end, not even a bone was left. He completely disappeared from this world. He had never expected that Yi Fan would be so powerful and dangerous. After being ambushed in Lu City, Yi Fan had directly rushed to the Qishir Manor to kill him, decisive and fierce. Mingyuan, the half-step expert of the Xiao family, cried out in shock. Seeing this scene, he was powerless. No matter how powerful he was, he had no way of reviving a dead person. Immediately afterwards, his face fell ashen, expression sinister. He was like a ferocious beast that wanted to devour a human as he threw himself at Yi Fan. His large hand shook, and then a purple copper 8 trigrams furnace appeared. It was 1,000 zhang tall, the sky dome even collapsing. Dong. The copper 8 trigrams furnace was as large as a mountain, towering into the sky, filling up half the sky. Purple gold flowed, and the metallic luster was cold. The pressure made it hard for people to breathe, almost suffocating. Junior, hand over your life. The half-step expert of the Xiao family, Xiaoji, roared. He was truly angry now. He could only watch as his nephew was shot to death, but he couldn't stop it in time. Boom. Endless flames rushed out. The purple gold 8 trigrams furnace was thousands of meters tall, and the aura it emitted was like an abyss, boundless and boundless. It spewed out purple flames, drowning out half the sky. Yi Fan didn't linger here. This was a half-step expert, and the difference between their cultivation levels was too great. There was a great secret realm between them, and he didn't want to fight to the death. He activated the aspect technique and left. Little Yi, where are you going? Xiaoji shouted, chasing closely. But what made him dumbfounded was that Yi Fan only swayed slightly, and he was thrown out who knew how many mountain ridges. He felt a sense of helplessness. How could he chase? If he followed behind, he wouldn't even be able to eat the dust. 8 days later, news came that the beast riots in the Immortal Mansion world had calmed, and peace was restored. Who knew how many powerful cultivators would enter? In these few days, the price of the Immortal Burial Diagram had skyrocketed. At its most expensive, it had reached 50,000 kilograms of origin source each. Yi Fan took the opportunity to make 7 or 8 copies, and each one was sold for 30,000 kilograms. Unfortunately, the Immortal Burial Diagrams were everywhere. In the end, almost everyone had one, and no one was willing to be the spendthrift. This also meant that the Immortal Estate world was about to experience a storm of blood. There were at least a dozen entrances to the primal ancient space in the Central Plains. Many major forces had come, all of them wanted a piece of the pie. Yi Fan then arrived at the adjacent Immortal Cliff, and began to trade for some necessities in this free market, which he would use when he entered the Immortal Estate world. Not long after, he was startled to see Duanda and the barbarian walking together. The two of them meeting was very funny. Duanda greeted him with a smile, and tried his best to rope him in, as if he wanted to discuss something. On the other hand, Dongfang Yi was on high alert. He mistakenly thought that the matter of robbing Fatty had been exposed. We had some misunderstandings before. I just wanted to take a look at that mace. Fatty Duan dawdled as he pulled Duan Lingtian's hand intimately. Dongfang Yi had a strange expression on his face. He had stripped Duanda naked with his own hands, so he felt uneasy when he saw the fatty. The fatty seemed to be trying to rope him in, and did not notice anything. What do you want to do? The barbarian waved his mace. Duanda lowered his stance and actually wanted to rope in the barbarian, to explore the immortal graveyard together. Dongfang Yi was completely relieved. This had nothing to do with what happened last time. Yi Fan, who was not too far away, wanted to laugh. This fatty was looking for a helper, and he ended up looking for that barbarian. It was quite comical. Is it enough for me alone? How about I find a few more people? Dongfang Yi said. Fatty Duan rubbed his hands and nodded. That would be great. We need powerful people, but not those so-called half-step almighty ones. If we bring them along, it will be very difficult for us to lead. Hey brother Yi, you're here too. Dongfang Yi's eyes were sharp, and he discovered Yi Fan. He waved at him and called him over. Who is this? Fatty Duan squinted his eyes and sized up Yi Fan. He's Yi Zhaotian. He defeated many disciples of the extraordinary warrior manner. Yin Yunluan also became stupid because of him, and now he's half dead. You're that overlord who specializes in eating spirit beasts? Duanda covered the small iron cage he was carrying with one hand. There was a mouse flowing with multicolored light inside. Yi Fan really wanted to kick him. This damn fatty was too despicable. Did he think he would eat the spirit mouse? Don't stare, this divine mouse can't be eaten. It has great use for exploring the immortal graveyard. Duanda warned him. This bastard was definitely doing this on purpose. Yi Fan cursed silently. He rolled his eyes and said, Don't worry, I'd rather eat you than eat it. We're still a bit lacking in manpower. We should bring a few more experts. Of course, it would be best if they were all monstrous geniuses, Fatty Duan said. They set off on the same day, because there really was no time to waste. All the major forces had entered. If they were a step late, they might not even get any leftovers. This time, Yi Fan entered the immortal manor through the entrance of the extraordinary warrior manor. With Duanda and the barbarians' cover, no one checked them at all. This ancient world was a primordial place. The spiritual chi here was many times denser than the outside world. Birds and beasts roamed about, and most of them were extremely powerful ancient beasts. Now, all the major forces had an agreement that it was forbidden to kill auspicious beasts to refine medicine. Whoever dared to violate this agreement would be severely punished to prevent beast riots from happening again. Are we going to the immortal graveyard or to find the whereabouts of that centipede? The barbarian asked. Because on the way, not all the cultivators were rushing to the ancient emperor's abode. Too many people were gathered there. If a chaotic battle broke out, perhaps only the major forces would be able to obtain anything in the end. That centipede is also not easy to deal with. The ancient mirror on the forehead is definitely an ancient saint's weapon. Even a group of supreme experts working together might not be able to suppress it. Duanda shook his head. Roar! In the distance, a flood dragon soared into the sky. It was several hundred meters long, and then it coiled around a mountain peak. With a loud roar, it tore the mountain apart. Its momentum was shocking, and rocks shot through the air. Over there, a series of miserable cries rang out. Many cultivators died a violent death. Clearly, this was a powerful beast king. At the very least, it was at the half-step supreme expert level. Oh no, this path is blocked. Could it be that these beasts are going to guard the immortal graveyard? They were still very far from their destination, but along the way, they already saw many beasts blocking the way. as if they were unwilling to let human cultivators near that region. It was suspected that the ancient emperor's resting place was in the depths of the immortal manor world. Ordinary cultivators couldn't reach it at all because beasts ran amok there. Some people speculate that this ancient world has a circumference of about 80,000 kilometers. There are many dangerous places within, and it is not advisable to approach. The immortal graveyard was 30,000 kilometers away from the extraordinary warrior manor's exit. Although it was still far from the depths, it was relatively dangerous. It was surrounded by swamps, large lakes, cliffs, and abysses. With every step forward, there would be dangers of life and death. There were many ancient beasts living within, and they were incomparably powerful and terrifying. There is an ancient battlefield in the depths of this ancient world. Someone heard the battle cries. Who knows, there might be humans inside. The barbarians suggested that if they didn't find anything in the immortal graveyard, then they should enter the depths of this world to take a look. Let's be a bit more careful. The immortal graveyard map didn't mark the depths, which means that no one dares to enter yet. Fatty Duan was very cautious. Along the way, they continuously took detours. There were many beasts blocking the way, but they didn't want to clash with them. Along the way, they saw many human corpses and fresh blood. Of course, there were also many beast corpses, and they even found the bones of a few beast kings. It was extremely terrifying. Not long after, they neared their destination. The number of cultivators they saw immediately increased, and there was almost no one below the dragon transformation realm. Ordinary people couldn't reach this place at all. It really is a place that connects to the heavens. Right in front of them, there was a vast and boundless mountain range. Auspicious multicolored light blossomed, orchids grew, and dragon grass took root between the cracks of the rocks. We can't fly after entering this place. They discovered a fact with shock. The divine force was still here, but there was no way to fly into the sky. The other cultivators were the same, and they all advanced on foot. Could it be that there really is a great emperor's sacred weapon suppressing this place? Duanda revealed a rare serious expression. He was both shocked and excited. That place that connects to the heavens was surrounded by all types of complex terrain, including abyss, giant lakes, swamps, and others. Ah! Miserable cries rang out, the sound traveling extremely far. When an ancient Holy Land's 5 supreme elders crossed the Great Lake, they were swallowed by a giant black tortoise, sinking to the bottom of the lake. Heavens! That giant tortoise is as large as a small mountain. How many years has it cultivated for? Everyone cried out in alarm, feeling a wave of horror. On the other side, there were people who wanted to climb over the cliff of the abyss to approach the immortal graveyard. In the end, a giant bird that was several hundred zhang long rushed out from the precipice of the abyss. Its entire body was covered in scales, and it spat out a streak of light, sucking 70 to 80 people into its mouth. A vicious bird comparable to a Holy Lord-level expert. Many people stopped. There were some who wanted to carve formation patterns to cross over, but they discovered that it was ineffective, completely useless. Perhaps there really is a great emperor's sacred weapon suppressing this place. Many older generation figures became excited. Even if this place was a mountain of blades and a wok of oil, after coming to this conclusion, they no longer felt fear. Many people advanced wave after wave, starting to advance. Someone entered. Finally, a Holy Lord-level figure took action, killing a beast king and successfully ascending that place full of spiritual essence, entering the Pure Land. Let's walk through the swamp. Duanda sized up this place for a long time, and then he chose this direction. The three of them began to advance. Goo! A frog cry sounded. 100 zhang tall giant toad jumped out from the mud, devouring over 100 people in front of it in a single gulp, completely eating them. A Holy Lord-level toad. This thing is even a great wasteland species. There are 9 golden lines on its back, and it can shoot out 9 divine arrows that can even pierce through powerful beings. The barbarian was shocked. Don't worry, we'll slowly make our way through the swamp, Duanda said. They made a detour for over 10 li, and the swamp in front of them suddenly split apart. A bitter baleful aura rushed into the sky, revealing a giant dorsal fin that was as sharp as a blade. What kind of creature is this? Ah! Miserable cries rang through the air. 6 supreme elders of a supreme sect in the Central Plains were all cut apart by that dorsal fin. Its speed was too fast, and those people couldn't dodge at all. The dozens of Zhang long dorsal fin flickered with black light, and it was unstoppable. Wisps of bloody mist curled up around it. Hong! When it leapt up, Yi Fan and the others finally saw its appearance clearly. This was a large crocodile, but it had a dorsal fin. Apart from this, it also had the characteristics of a dragon, and it was over 200 zhang long. Heavens, this is a great wasteland species, ichthyosaur crocodile. Dongfang Yi was shocked. He grew up in a savage tribe and had seen a few strange species. Although they weren't at the Holy Lord level, they were still terrifying, so he immediately recognized it. It has always been like this since time immemorial. Suddenly, a wonderful sound came from the distance. Buddhist light curled up, and an elegant and otherworldly woman sat cross-legged on a lotus throne. Her beauty was out of this world, and her appearance was solemn and dignified. She constantly chanted ancient scriptures. Her body emitted a gentle Buddhist power that purified the surrounding swamp. It turned out that there were many strange insects there. Each of them was the size of a thumb, and they could pierce through metal and stone. However, they were all blocked by the Buddhist light. Isn't this the Western desert woman who can prove her Tao and become a bodhisattva? Duanda was surprised. Meanwhile, Yi Fan's eyes were fixed on another person beside the lotus throne. It was a sloppy old man who was waving at them and shouting, "Let's go together. We'll go in together and take the great emperor's holy weapon." It was the blind old man who sold the immortal burial diagram. Chapter 581. There were some sparse ancient trees in the swamp, but they towered into the clouds and cast a large area of shade. This place was very humid, and the yin energy was also very heavy. A lotus platform flowed with extraordinary splendor. It was as white as jade, translucent and overflowing with colors. A woman in flawless white clothes sat on top, her hair like clouds. She was chanting Buddhist scriptures, looking otherworldly. The old blind man stood beside the lotus platform and waved at them. His hoarse voice was very penetrating. Everyone heard him, but they hesitated and didn't move. Duanda glanced at him and mumbled, "What's the background of this old man? Why does he look like an old hoodlum and not a decent person? Who could be more dishonest than you?" "He was the one who sold the immortal burial diagram," Yi Fan said in a small voice. In his opinion, the old blind man was a bit more honest than Duanda. Dongfang Yi was very surprised and said, "He sold the immortal burial diagram. Everyone, how about we go together? There is strength in numbers. The ancient scriptures will be divided equally, and the holy weapons will be decided by fate." The old blind man waved his hand and called out to the three. In the end, Yi Fan, Dongfang Yi, and Duanda walked forward and met up with the other two. But as soon as they got close, they were greatly shocked. They had already seen strange insects here, but they didn't expect them to be so terrifying. Each insect seemed to be wearing golden armor, and were as long as a finger. They could actually eat god power. Although the young girl refined dozens of insects, there were still 30 left. They ate a large area of the Buddhist light, and the light screen outside the old blind man's body was also full of holes. "What kind of insect is this?" The barbarian was shocked. Even though he lived in the wild old forest, he had never seen it before. Can it be the divine insect that the old man spoke of? Duanda was terrified and took a few steps back. "Yes, this is a god-killing insect, but its blood is not pure. It is not as terrifying as the rumors say." The old blind man called out to the others and asked them to help him refine it. God-killing insects were said to be able to even devour gods. Almost nothing could stop them. They could bite through anything and eat anything. This is a legendary spiritual creature. Its value is no less than that of an ancient scripture. If you cultivate it for a few thousand years, you might really be able to give birth to a real god-slaying insect. The blind old man urged a few people to capture a few and domesticate them. "Old man, you're too unkind. Unless you start nurturing these bugs from the egg, they'll definitely backfire. They won't have a good ending." Duanda gritted his teeth. "Old bastard." Dongfang Yi wanted to beat him up after hearing this. For the first time, Yi Fan felt that this old liar was even worse than Duanda. He was also a person who deserved a beating. He was the kind of bastard that even dogs would bite and geese would carve. What I mean is, hurry up and help us refine these divine insects. Then we'll look for the insect nest together. The blind old man rolled his eyes, looking very innocent. Clang! The barbarian's club smashed down on a god-slaying bug, but it did not shatter. Instead, a metallic sound rang out, showing just how tough it was. These bugs were all thumb-sized and covered in fine golden scales. They looked like little flood dragons, but they didn't have horns. These things can't be broken, and can only be refined with magic power. Otherwise, how could they be called god-slaying bugs? The old liar reminded. Divine insects had thin ancestral blood, and were almost extinct. Now they were in a primitive state and hadn't developed much spirituality. However, they still had this kind of power, which was enough to show how terrifying they were. If a few ancestral insects are born. Duanda's eyes lit up. He continuously rubbed his hands, appearing very excited. If he could breed a few real god-slaying bugs, he could do whatever he wanted in the heavens and earth. Unfortunately, he could only think about it. No one had ever succeeded. According to legend, during the ancient times, there was only a saint who successfully bred a few semi-divine insects. Together with him, they killed an awakened archaic king, until he disintegrated and died. I don't believe you're that tough. The barbarian's stubbornness came. He threw away the wolf fang club and reached out with one hand to pinch a golden bug, crushing it with force. Wild brat, don't move recklessly. The old liar jumped in fright and hurriedly shouted, telling him to throw it away. They can bite through even the corporeal body of a powerhouse. Don't act recklessly. Duanda was also startled. Creak, creak. The barbarian twisted it with force. The golden divine insect between his fingers made an ear-piercing sound. Pfft. In the end, he actually crushed a god-slaying bug alive. Golden light scattered in all directions and blood splattered everywhere. The old blind man was so shocked that he rolled his eyes. You pervert! Duanda muttered. The old liar said, hurry up and help us refine them. We don't have time to waste here. Even if we can't find the ancient scripture, as long as we can find the god-slaying bug nest, it'll still be a bountiful harvest. Duanda took action, and began to help them refine it. Dongfengyi, on the other hand, directly crushed it with his hands. It was very strenuous, but he was doing it slowly. Yifan also pinched one and crushed it in his sleeve. In the end, a few people still saw it. Everyone stared at him as if they had seen a ghost. I'm just trying. When can we compare notes? The barbarian's eyes shone with incomparable passion. His physical body was unparalleled, and he had never been able to find an opponent. I only know how to shoot arrows. You can be the target and I'll shoot. There's no problem at all, Yifan said with a smile. Dongfengyi. In the end, several dozen god-slaying bugs were all eliminated. They searched carefully in this swamp, but they couldn't find even the shadow of a bug nest. It's most likely in the immortal graveyard. I have a premonition that it's very bad. Don't tell me a pure-blooded ancestral bug has really been born? If that's the case, even the bones of saints can be gnawed to pieces. Duanda mumbled. I see that you have yin qi all over your body. You probably come and go in the mausoleum all year round. Is that true? The old liar asked, rolling his eyes. Old man, you talk too much. Duanda did not have the slightest bit of respect for his elders. Buddha is merciful. Many thanks to the benefactors for your help. On the translucent and colorful lotus platform, the white-clothed woman smiled faintly. She had an aura as if she had jumped out of the three realms. Even gods and Buddhas who held flowers and smiled were nothing more than this. It was as if she did not belong to this mortal world, faintly discernible yet vivid. There was a golden lotus between her eyebrows, which contrasted brilliantly with her jade-like skin. Her figure was delicate, and her black hair was like clouds. She had a kind of elegant and moving beauty. Your sentient enlightenment from the western desert? Dongfengyi asked. Sentient enlightenment was a very strange name, but it was very particular in the western desert Buddhism. Since ancient times, not many people dared to give themselves such a name. It was another meaning of bodhisattva. It included self-awareness and awareness. It was an enlightened person who also took the responsibility of enlightening others. It was sentient and enlightened. There had long been rumors that sentient enlightenment would become a bodhisattva in the future. She was one of the few people in the Western Desert who was close to Buddha and would achieve the great Tao. Sentient enlightenment put away the lotus platform and stood in the swamp. Her white clothes fluttered, and her skin was bright and clear like seven-colored glass. She emitted a Buddhist light, making her seem like a dream or an illusion. She did not say anything superfluous. She maintained a kind of Buddhist nature, peaceful and tranquil. She nodded and smiled at them without saying much. Ah! Miserable cries sounded from the distance. That ichthyosaur crocodile was 200 jong in length. It appeared and disappeared unpredictably in the swamp, killing dozens of experts in succession. It was even more terrifying than a peaked divine lord. Gua! More than 10 li away, the 100 jong tall toad's roar shook the mountains and rivers. It swallowed over 100 experts and became even more bloodthirsty. The entire swamp was trembling. This won't do. There are 2 vicious spirits guarding this place. We can't go around them at all. Yi Fan frowned. Don't worry. We can just wait here. Even if the sky collapses, there will be someone to hold it up. The old swindler was calm and unperturbed. He said that this place could avoid the 2 great wastelands and was very safe. Hong. Mud flew everywhere, swirling high into the sky. An emperor lord and a supreme being took action against the ichthyosaur crocodile. A great cauldron descended from the sky, suppressing downwards. Ho! The ichthyosaur crocodile roared loudly. The clouds in the horizon were all scattered. The 200 jong crocodile body smashed down fiercely, sending the great cauldron flying and smashing it into a distant mountain ridge. Hong! Smoke and dust rushed into the sky. Rubble flew through the air. 7 or 8 mountain peaks were smashed down, and the great cauldron fell onto the ground. What a beast! A great seal descended from the sky and pressed downwards, turning into a jade peak. The vegetation on it was flourishing, and a silver waterfall fell down. There were birds and beasts on the ground. It was incomparably lively and grand. Dong! The jade seal turned into a great mountain, and heavily pressed down on the ichthyosaur crocodile's body. The entire swamp sank down, but a bitter baleful energy suddenly rushed into the sky. Pung! The ichthyosaur crocodile took on the great seal head-on and sent it flying. It smashed into a distant mountain ridge, and turned it into a barren land. This ancient variant ichthyosaur crocodile is too terrifying. Yi Fan and the others were astonished. An emperor lord and a supreme being working together couldn't suppress it. Not long after, a holy lord flew over and brought out a pair of dragon shears to suppress it. Clang! Zhang! Sparks flew in all directions and mud overflowed into the sky. The 3 supreme beings fought a great battle against the ichthyosaur crocodile. They fought until the sky darkened and the earth became dark. Meanwhile, on the other side, 3 supreme sect master level characters took action together, and were currently suppressing that toad. It was also very terrifying. There were 9 golden lines on its back, and it shot out 9 divine arrows that almost pierced through a sect master to death. This immortal graveyard is truly terrifying. There are holy lord-level savage ancient beast kings guarding all 4 directions. Just this swamp alone has 2 desolate beasts. Who knows what else we'll see once we enter? Now is our chance. Let's go. The old swindler called out to the others and was the first to rush towards the heaven-reaching land. In this place, apart from the supreme beings, no one else could fly. They could only advance on foot. This time, they were more scared than hurt. They didn't encounter any strange beasts, and directly arrived at the heaven-reaching land. The immortal cliffs were vast and boundless, and purple energy surged. There weren't many plants here, but it wasn't lacking in vitality either. The grass that grew here was either orchids, dragon grass, or wondrous trees. Not a single stalk was ordinary. On the cliffs, 10,000-year spirit medicines bloomed, and emitted a delicate fragrance. In front of the ancient cave, divine vines intertwined. The flowers were sparkling and translucent, and some even produced strange fruits. Quite a few cultivators had long since rushed in, searching everywhere for the great emperor's ancient scriptures. In this land enshrouded in purple energy, there was a mysterious Tao rhythm, but it was broken by the crowd. Ah! Battles broke out among the human cultivators. Someone discovered a cave dwelling, and a group of people swarmed in, fighting fiercely. In the blink of an eye, there were already more than 10 people who lost their lives. Do you see? Who knows how many people will die today? It's just a sword art. If the great emperor's ancient scriptures appeared, even the supreme emperors would have to fight to the death. The old blind man spoke. Did you discover anything? Yi Fan poked Duanda. This fellow had been robbing tombs all year round, so he definitely had a different understanding of this place. Fatty Duan was very calm. With his hands behind his back, he continuously paced between these immortal cliffs. He was currently measuring and meticulously calculating and deducing. After a long time he sighed and said, "This place is too big. The cliffs are endless, and the spiritual auspicious energy is too abundant. If I were to deduce everything one by one, it would take me at least half a year. Let me take a look at the general trend." Yi Fan muttered to himself. He used the heavenly origin divine technique to observe this immortal graveyard as a whole. His divine eyes shot out rays of light as they swept in all directions. Moments later, his heart trembled. This place was mysterious and mysterious. It was as if there was an immortal lying on his side in a deep sleep. It was incomparably bizarre. Yi Fan engraved on the ground, marking out the places with the most abundant spiritual auspicious energy. At the same time, he pointed out a few dragon caves that were certain to die. Not bad. I've already observed the great trend of the heaven and earth. If we work together, there is no ancient cemetery in this world that we can't enter. Even if it is the place where the great emperor died in meditation, we can still charge in. Duanda's eyes shone with a profound light. However, there were still many places to choose from. They couldn't make a decision in such a short time. Let me try divination. The old blind man grabbed dozens of ancient tortoise shells, muttered an incantation, and then threw them on the ground. What? 9 extremes? Death without a doubt. The old blind man looked at the divination on the ground and his body trembled. What do you mean? The barbarian asked. The divination shows that this place is absolute heaven, absolute earth, absolute human, absolute ghost, and absolute immortal. Let's put it this way. Whatever enters will be destroyed. The old blind man's words were unnatural. Isn't this the place where the ancient great emperors died in meditation? How did it become a land of 9 extremes? Duanda was doubtful and puzzled. Yi Fan stood up and used the heavenly divine technique to observe it again. As a result, the more he looked, the more shocked he became. This immortal cliff was indeed like an immortal lying on his side. However, after carefully observing it, he was horrified. This immortal wasn't sleeping, but rather seemed to have been locked here by someone and buried here. This really is an immortal graveyard not only in name, but also in reality. He said to himself and drew this diagram on the ground. The others were also shocked. The old blind man put away the dozens of tortoise shells and continuously shook them to perform the second divination. With a crash sound, they scattered all over the ground. This time, they pressed down on the immortal graveyard drawn by Yi Fan. There are immortal treasures here, most likely the sacred weapon, or even the remains of the ancient great emperors. However, this is a land of 9 extremes. The old blind man deduced the divination once again. Are you accurate? Dongfang Yi seriously doubted this old man, and felt that he wasn't a good person. The old blind man said, I can't be wrong. This is definitely a land of immortal graveyards. However, there is still a strand of life. As long as we find the great emperor's sacred weapon or ancient scriptures, a path of life will most likely appear. Ah! Miserable cries could be heard from time to time in the distance. Large amounts of cliffs appeared one after another. Purple energy surged and multicolored clouds rose. It was unknown just how many cultivators had come in to fight over 10,000-year-old spiritual medicines, and fight to the death for a cave with characters carved on it. This was just the beginning, yet 60 to 70 people had already lost their lives. Blood dyed the cliffs red. Let's go. The divination shows that the only strand of life is in this direction. Let's go forward and find the immortal treasures. The old blind man spoke and pointed in a direction. Even though they were nervous, they didn't retreat and chose to advance. As soon as they passed by a few cliffs, they saw quite a few bloodstains and corpses. There were quite a few people roaming about in this direction, and there was no lack of top-level figures among them. However, they didn't start a massacre. Not good. At this moment, all of the fine hairs on Duanda's body stood up. He stared at the corner of the cliff ahead and said, "Did you guys see something just now?" It seemed like a person disappeared in a flash. Dongfangyi also stared in that direction. That wasn't a person. I didn't think there would be such a thing in this world. I've been in and out of all kinds of ancient tombs for more than 20 years, and have never encountered such a thing. Who would have thought that I would run into one here today? Duanda's face was pale. Chapter 582. What is that? Yifan didn't look in that direction. He turned around and asked. He didn't know what they saw. I've been in the ancient tomb for more than 20 years, and this is the first time I've seen something like this. Duanda's lips were pale. Even someone like him felt fear, so one could imagine the seriousness of the problem. Could it be the god's will that the old elder mentioned? The blind old man was moved and revealed a serious expression. It's most likely that kind of thing. Duanda stared at the corner of the cliff as if he was facing a great enemy. The god's will was an illusory legend. There weren't many records in the ancient books because people seriously doubted its authenticity. Only a few ancient sects knew about it. How can you be sure with just a quick glance? The blind old man asked. This is most likely the burial ground of the ancient great emperors. Naturally, I've prepared well. You guys come and see the reaction of this divine mouse. Duanda took out a small iron cage from his sleeve. A little mouse flowing with multicolored light was rolling its eyes and twitching continuously. 9 small beams of light shot out from the top of its head. It was extremely strange. Extreme number, 9 thoughts appearing at the same time. It's most likely the god's will. The blind old man was shocked. You also know this? Fatty Duan was a bit surprised. I'm good at divination, so I naturally know a bit about ancient burial. This ancient tomb really is a burial ground for immortals. The blind old man's expression was serious as he looked around. Should we retreat or continue forward? Duanda asked. We've already entered. Is there still a way out? The blind old man was bewildered. What exactly is the god's will? Dongfangyi asked. The immortal divine will formed after the ancient god's will dies. The blind old man said slowly. There really are gods in this world? The barbarian was shocked. He only believed in his own strength when he was in a primitive tribe, and had never heard of these things. Whether gods exist or not, even the ancient great emperors couldn't say for sure. There wasn't a trace of evidence and it wasn't recognized or confirmed by the people. That's why there are very few records in the ancient books. The god's will was a terrifying existence. It was formed from the immortal will of the immortal will after the god died. It looked similar to humans and its strength was unparalleled. However, what was truly terrifying was that the divine will was a demon that slaughtered all creatures, destroying everything. It was extremely cruel and extreme, almost impossible to defend against. According to legend, its formation was the embodiment of the evil side of the gods when they were alive. It was only after death that it was released, forming a powerful willpower that it became a human-shaped devil. Did gods really exist in this world? Yifan muttered to himself. This riddle had stumped countless cultivators since ancient times. Even the monkey's father, the emperor of fighting, had no way of answering it. It's hard to say whether there is a god or not. But just now, that person disappeared in a flash, and this spirit rat appeared to have an ultimate divine sense wave. Duanda said in a deep voice. The study of tombs was a deep and profound field of study. Duanda had studied it for many years, entering many ancient tombs and robbing many of the tombs of legendary invincible kings. For example, the Yuhua king from 15,000 years ago. The 9 heavenly weapons that dominated the world once again saw the light of day because of this. The sky demon lamp from 30,000 years ago once again shone brightly. Duanda could be said to be a grandmaster-level existence in the study of tombs. He naturally had many heaven-defying methods, and the ultimate divine sense wave was created to verify the divine will. I thought it was just something randomly written in the tomb scripture. I didn't expect it to be real. One day, I will personally see the divine will, Duanda said to himself. The few of them arrived in front of the mountain rock. That person had already disappeared without a trace. and only a few corpses were left on the ground. There were no injuries on their bodies, and their eyes were wide open. They died with everlasting regret. They were scared to death. The old swindler frowned. After a careful inspection, he discovered that their divine wills had all been destroyed, and they seemed to be extremely terrified. The divine will? There was a demon here. Thinking of this problem, no one could remain calm. Who knew when they would see it with their own eyes? Up ahead, the sounds of killing shook the heavens. Another cave dwelling had been discovered, and many people rushed over to fight over it. Among them were some supreme elders of the Holy Lands, and they were fighting fiercely. Valuable caves have appeared one after another. In a while, even the emperor-level characters will make their move. After traveling for a dozen or so li, an enormous precipice lay in front of them. The imprints on its surface were indistinct, and there were birds, beasts, fish, and bugs. There were also many ancient patterns whose meaning couldn't be distinguished. This place attracted many cultivators. Among them, there were actually a few half-step powerhouses. They stood at the very front, staring at it without blinking. This is most likely a Tao comprehension diagram. Let's take a look here as well. Dongfangyi was a martial maniac. As soon as he saw the profound diagram, he immediately stopped moving and stood there to observe it. This is a heavenly Tao diagram of nature, and it contains the true meaning of the great Tao. However, I fear that even a holy master wouldn't be able to comprehend it. Zhu Yuqing, who hadn't spoken for a long time, spoke up. His white clothes were like a deity, and his voice carried a magnetic quality. He was like a bodhisattva walking in the world of mortals. Yi Fan carefully observed it, and his heart trembled. The patterns carved on this precipice came from the same source as the ancient scripture of nature that Princess Yu Dai had given him. That personal letter included these things on the precipice. This should be the work of a single person. There were no profound secret techniques, and even less of a specific method. It was just a description of a type of natural Tao. I can't comprehend it. Everyone shook their heads. This was too profound and indistinct. All humans had 7 emotions and 6 desires. It was impossible for it to be like what was recorded, to be born of inaction, to have no desires or thoughts. Is this an ancient scripture created for immortals? How could a person with flesh and blood cultivate it? If one could truly cultivate it, then it would just be grass, wood, and rocks. There wouldn't be any so-called human emotions. Even the half-step powerhouses said this. They turned around and left. Suddenly, a great weapon pierced through the void and appeared abruptly. It fiercely struck Yi Fan's back, sending him flying 300 zhang out and smashing into the precipice. The stone wall immediately split apart, and a human-shaped hole appeared. Yi Fan was smashed into the precipice, and he sunk deep inside. One could imagine how great the force was. The stone wall split apart, and Yi Fan rushed out. A strand of blood flowed out from the corner of his lips. He was burning with fury. Someone actually launched a sneak attack on him with tremendous force. If it was any other cultivator, that attack just now would have definitely wiped out their body and soul, not even leaving behind bone dregs. Even he felt his blood and chi surge, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Not far away, a black stone imprint was currently rising and falling. It was clear that it had struck Yi Fan's back, causing him some light injuries. Chang! A silver spear that was extremely small, and only the length of a chopstick suddenly appeared. It pierced towards the top of his skull in an incomparably sinister manner. This time, Yi Fan was already prepared. He shifted his position and dodged to the side. The chopstick-length spear was like a streak of silver lightning. It could easily move through the void, and its power was extremely great. This is a slaughtering forbidden artifact. It can even pierce through powerful beings. The old blind man muttered, feeling a bit surprised. The black stone imprint and the silver spear were both forbidden artifacts. They could only be used a limited number of times, but their power was extremely great. Otherwise, how could they have injured Yi Fan's body? In the distance, the group of people was dumbfounded and couldn't speak for a long time. They had used forbidden artifacts and thought that they would kill Yi Fan in one blow. Who would have thought that he would only spit out a mouthful of blood? Even a powerful being would have been pierced just now. Who is he to be able to take such an attack head-on? Is he from the same mother as that barbarian? Could they be blood brothers? How can their bodies be so monstrous? They controlled the black stone imprint and the chopstick-length silver spear to attack continuously, wanting to finish off Yi Fan. Two of them even flew over and quickly closed in. Little Yi, hand over your life. This person was the Xiao family's half-step powerful being, Xiaoji. Not long ago, he had been flung away by Yi Fan, who knew how many mountains he had passed. Yi Zhoutian, return my brother's life. The other person looked to be in his 40s. His cultivation was also very strong. At the Dragon Transformation 9th Transformation, he was Xiaoming Yuan's elder brother. Chi. The rest of the Xiao family threw formation flags all over the ground, wanting to surround Yi Fan. Unfortunately, it was of no use. The formation here had malfunctioned, and anyone below the powerful level could not fly. Surround him, don't let him escape. The Xiao family's people rushed over. There were actually two half-step powerful beings blocking the way. They laughed coldly and pressed forward. Little brat, you are too arrogant. You dare to behave atrociously in my Xiao family's territory? You even killed Mingyuan. I will skin you today. Killing him is too easy. Extract his soul and seal it in the copper lamp. Burn it for 100 years and let him suffer all kinds of torture. A group of people surrounded him. There were 3 half-step powerful beings in total, and the rest were also experts of the Dragon Transformation secret realm. They all took out their weapons and attacked Yi Fan, each of them revealing their killing intent. Voila! The blind old man used his tortoise shell to perform a divination and shouted to Yi Fan, "Go east, the door of life will be wide open, and there will be a way out." There is such a thing as divination in a life and death battle? Dongfang Yi glared at him, then raised his wolf fang mace and said, "Brother Yi, let me help you." Buzz. He swung the wolf fang mace and smashed a Dragon Transformation secret realm expert into meat paste. Without any suspense, even the ancient treasure was turned into powder. Xiao family, you asked for it. Yi Fan was ambushed and suffered some light injuries. Although it was not serious, he was still angry. He directly uprooted a cliff that was hundreds of feet tall, shocking everyone in the distance. Their jaws dropped to the ground. What a monster! Is he even human? He has such great strength. Boom! Yi Fan raised his hand and threw it out, smashing a few Dragon Transformation secret realm experts into meat paste. He then uprooted a cliff that was hundreds of feet tall, and threw it at a half-step powerful being. Bang! The half-step cultivator took out an ancient treasure, shattering the cliff and sending dust into the sky. When he looked again, Yi Fan had already started to draw his bow and pull the bowstring. Ah! People from the Xiao family screamed in pain as they were pierced through one after another. Their bodies shattered, flesh and bones flew everywhere. Die! The 3 half-step powerful beings were furious. They turned into 3 rays of light and rushed over. They took out the purple copper 8 trigrams furnace and other treasures, attacking together to kill Yi Fan. This way! Duanda shouted from afar and led the way. Dongfang Yi swung his wolf fang mace and killed 4 or 5 people in a row. Zhu Yuqing also made his move, using his Buddhist aura to help Yi Fan block some people. Only the blind old man used his tortoise shell to perform divination and said, "East then south. There is a great omen. The ancient emperor's cave is about to appear. You want to leave? Today you have nowhere to go. Yi Zhoutian, I will burn you all into the sky." Xiaoming Yuan's brother followed the 3 half-step powerful beings, his voice filled with hatred. God's will, I see him again. Duanda trembled, his lips turning green. Chapter 583. Swoosh. That person flashed and disappeared. He only swayed for a moment, and then disappeared. Did the God's will really exist? Duanda's face turned pale. In the small iron cage in his sleeve, the spirit mouth shot out 9 dazzling beams of light from the top of its head. The ancient god is brilliant, but the God's will after death is the embodiment of the evil side. It is an undefeatable demon. At this time, no one else paid attention or saw it because the 3 half-step experts of the Xiao family were charging over. They couldn't be distracted. Little Yi, I will pull out your tendons, pull out your bones, and light you up into a sky lantern. Xiaoji's voice was cold. He stretched out a hand and took out the 3,000-meter-tall purple copper 8 trigrams furnace. Purple flames overflowed into the sky, collapsing a mountain on the spot. Rocks flew through the air, creating a powerful deterrent. Because they couldn't fly now, it was very difficult to dodge. Clang! Dongfang Yi swung the wolf-tooth club and smashed the rocks that were tens of thousands of kilograms in all directions. The barbarian's divine strength was shocking and had the power to pull mountains. Thump, thump! Sentient enlightenment was dressed in white and held a Bodhi tree branch in his hand. It was like a small dragon biting a leaf. It was vigorous and full of vitality, flowing with a hazy mist. With a gentle sweep, a large number of rocks fell to the ground. Everyone's expression changed. They couldn't see the depth of this beautiful girl. She didn't counterattack and only defended passively. However, this made many people of the Xiao family afraid. No one could fly. Apart from Yi Fan, who had the row incantation, the others couldn't move as fast as usual. They could only run on the ground. Rise! Yi Fan stood between two cliffs that were almost connected. He suddenly roared and lifted one with each hand, lifting both cliffs up. He threw his right hand and a cliff that was hundreds of meters tall smashed towards the three half-step experts. They couldn't fly and couldn't dodge, so they could only take out their weapons and smash it. Boom! Smoke and dust rose into the sky. The three half-step experts sneered and activated their ancient treasures. Although the stone mountain couldn't hurt them, it slowed them down. Buzz! The void trembled. Yi Fan's entire body shone with boundless light as he lifted up the other stone mountain. His blood energy surged, and his essence energy surged like a tide, all of it pouring into this stone mountain. His divine force was like an ocean that would never dry up. Right now it was completely activated. A stone mountain that wasn't that large was a bit frightening. The entire mountain was shining. Boom! Yi Fan threw it out with all his might, this time towards the Xiao family's experts on the other side. There were no half-step experts there. They were all Dragon Transformation Secret Realm cultivators. A sun that covers the sky. In the distance, many spectators cried out in alarm. That mountain shone with incomparable brilliance. It truly was like an enormous sun as it streaked across the sky. It was extremely terrifying. In order to fool others, Yi Fan turned his divine power into a green-gold color. Even his body was flashing with a green-gold luster. His divine power was shocking as it poured into the stone mountain like an ocean. Retreat! Xiao family's people's expressions all changed. There was no way to fly. This kind of stone mountain pressed down, releasing such a terrifying energy fluctuation. It was truly frightening. Inhuman. He can throw a mountain with just a lift of his hand. His divine power is like an ocean. We can't fight him head-on. They quickly discovered that this stone mountain was excessively terrifying. Every inch of it was filled with boundless divine power, submerging even the sky. Hong! The green gold stone mountain fell. Many magical treasures were shattered by the divine power, and the brilliance poured down like a silver river. Not good. The three half-step experts were alarmed. They each took out their magical treasures and attacked the stone mountain. Pop! The stone mountain shattered, and rubble flew everywhere. However, the divine power became even more ferocious. It was like a torrential downpour, filling the sky and descending like blades. Finally, miserable cries rang out. Some people suffered a calamity, and more than 10 people were crushed into meat paste. Their names were erased from this world, and the survivors were trembling in fear. Yi Zhoutian, I will skin you alive! Xiao Mingyuan's older brother shouted loudly. I will personally take revenge for Mingyuan. The half-step expert Xiao Ji said fiercely. His face was ashen. You all miss him so much. I will think of a way to reunite you brothers, or even uncle and nephew. Yi Fan replied. At this time, he could only retreat when facing the half-step experts. However, he continued to shoot arrows. The 10,000 Deaths bow was as brilliant as the sun, and the divine arrows couldn't be stopped. Pooh! Blood splashed out, blossoming in the void. A head exploded, and a headless corpse fell to the ground. Pooh! Miserable cries rang out continuously. Another person's chest was pierced by a divine arrow, and his torso was broken into two. Yi Fan's expression was cold, and his attacks were merciless. The Xiao family always found trouble with him, wanting to kill him. At this time he continuously shot down their experts. Even though Yi Fan knew that he couldn't deal with the 3 half-step experts, he still didn't give up. He activated the all-secret, and his power increased tenfold as he continuously shot arrows. In the blink of an eye, he shot out 18 divine arrows, all of them several li long. Accompanied by lightning and thunder, it was as if 18 comets smashed into the great earth. Boom boom. This was an incomparably terrifying scene. The void collapsed and large black cracks extended in all directions. The 3 half-step experts subconsciously avoided and didn't face them head-on. The 18 stone mountains collapsed one after another from these 18 arrows, no longer existing. Rubble flew in all directions, and some crashed into the crowd while others hit the clouds. The ancient great emperor's cave has appeared. Many people cried out in alarm. After Yi Fan shot down the 18 stone mountains, a vast underground palace appeared. It was like an ancient cemetery, but also like an immortal palace. South and west, great luck. In this instant, the old blind divined again, and pointed out the way forward. Yi Fan, Dongfang Yi, and the others immediately entered the underground palace. The 3 half-step experts followed closely behind, and the others were even more in an uproar as they all rushed in. This was most likely the place where immortals were buried. There might be ancient scriptures inside, and there might even be holy weapons of extreme Tao. No one wasn't moved. Suddenly, one of the Xiao family's half-step experts cried out miserably, filled with terror. The underground palace was very dark. Yi Fan and the others looked back, and saw a black shadow grabbing that half-step expert's neck with one hand and raising him into the air. The Xiao family's half-step expert flailed and struggled violently, but he couldn't break free at all. Yi Fan and the others felt a chill run down their spines. That was a half-step expert. God's will. Duanda's voice trembled. Retreat, leave the underground palace. Let's make a divination, it's a great omen. The old blind divined urgently. The Xiao family's half-step expert let out a final cry. His limbs hung down powerlessly, and his divine will also dissipated. He died just like that. God's will. He was no different from a human, but he was extremely powerful. He had strangled a half-step expert with one hand, and everyone who saw this scene was incomparably terrified. Unfortunately, the underground light was dim, and his back was facing everyone, so they couldn't see clearly. Who is he? To be able to strangle a half-step expert to death, he's at least a peak Holy Lord level existence. The others didn't know, and they were all very shocked. You. Good. Go invite my father Grand Preceptor Xiao. Xiaoji was shocked and angry. He turned around and left. They weren't the only experts. The others were all looking for ancient scriptures. The Xiao family's other half-step expert was a step too slow, and his neck was grabbed by the God's will. It was like picking up a little chick, and it didn't take much effort at all. He died with just a miserable cry. Go, let's leave this place quickly, or else no one will be able to live. Duanda's face was pale. Thinking about the various rumors of the God's will, his fat body trembled. Yi Fan, Dongfang Yi, the old blind, and Zhu Yuqing followed behind. They quickly left the underground palace and rushed to the surface. However, many people didn't know the ins and outs. They thought that the immortal mansion had opened, so they swarmed in, wanting to obtain the immortal fate. Miserable cries rose and fell continuously. The underground palace was like an azurous field, and a large pile of corpses was piled up. Not good, there is a demon in the ancient tomb. Even the half-step experts are far from being his opponent. Quickly go and report to the emperor. At this moment, everyone finally realized that something was wrong. No matter how they looked at it, this person didn't seem human at all. His every movement didn't have the slightest bit of humanity, and he could crush a supreme elder to death with a single move. Fatty Duan's entire body was drenched in cold sweat as he said, "To think that I, Duan, was born at the age of 5 and roamed the ancient tomb for more than 20 years. This is the first time I've encountered the legendary God's will, and I finally have an opponent." The few people were nervous and speechless. This damned fatty's skin was really thick. He even said that he roamed the ancient tomb unhindered, yet he still had the lonely appearance of an expert. Over 100 people have died, let's go. Behind them, cries of fear could be heard. Everyone panicked and fled for their lives. No one dared to stay. That's not an underground palace, it's a chaotic burial ground. I saw the scene underground, it's an expanse of ancient tombs. And there are things crawling out of the tombs. Someone saw this scene and shouted out, making others feel even more uneasy. Normally, if they saw shady people and shady horses, they wouldn't care at all. However, this was the immortal graveyard, and they definitely couldn't provoke the non-humans that jumped out. Motherfucker, I also seem to have seen an old tomb just now. Duanda's expression was unnatural. He walked in the ancient tomb all year round, but right now he still felt a bit uneasy. There is something wrong with this damned place. There were great emperors that came here before, but it might not have been the emperor's manner. The cliffs are endless, and this is the land of 9 extremes. Didn't I already deduce that? Everything is going to be destroyed. The old blind man muttered. Everyone couldn't help but think back to the diagram Yi Fan carved. There was an immortal lying on his side, as if his corpse was lying here. This place might really be worthy of its name, a place where immortals were buried. Hong. Suddenly, the distance shook violently. Everyone was shocked. That place was surging like ocean waves. An expanse of mountain rocks rose and fell like ocean spray, and then they shattered. What happened? Everyone was shocked. There were actually 365 mountains that collapsed at the same time. It was as if raging waves were surging, rising and falling one after another. Terrifying energy fluctuations sent many people flying high into the sky. Heavens, could it be that a saint took action? This is too terrifying. Wang. The void was like a tattered painting scroll, trembling intensely. Then the 365 mountains on the ground forever ceased to exist, turning into smoke and dust. Everyone's faces became pale, not daring to believe everything that was happening. Their hearts felt heavy, as if they were going to suffocate. More than a dozen people stood in the air above the ruined land. They were the imperial lords of the 4 divine dynasties of the Central Plains, the divine monks of the Western Desert, the demon lord and the battle lord of the South Mountains. They could fly, so they weren't restricted. Hong. An ancient mountain slowly rose from the ground like a bright moon rising from the sea. It was magnificent and magnificent, drawing everyone's attention. The divine mountain didn't reach into the clouds, but it was majestic and majestic, giving others the misconception of an emperor within a mountain. It was majestic and intimidating. The cave of an ancient great emperor. They found the true entrance. The old blind man's expression changed. Duanda was also stunned. After carefully observing it, he said, "There is always someone better. I thought that I was the only one who completely comprehended burial studies. I never expected these great powers to have people who understand as well." At the base of the great mountain was a pair of enormous stone gates. There were 2 ancient characters carved on them, but not a single person recognized them. These are archaic divine characters. Someone cried out in alarm. A few older generation figures frowned. I know why there are deities who only think about this devil. There is an archaic deity buried here, an ancient cave that we cannot understand. The old blind man said to himself, the human race's great emperor should have come here before. He definitely left behind some profound mysteries here, or perhaps he confirmed something. Duanda's expression changed continuously. Before the archaic times, were there really undying, unmatched deities? Feeling was stunned. He held the Bodhi green branch in his hand, the golden lotus imprint between his brows flowing with immortal light. Could there really be immortals before the archaic times? What does this place have to do with the immortal domain? The barbarian was filled with doubt and confusion. Deities only think. Ancient deities. Immortals. Yi Fan muttered to himself. He suddenly thought of the spiritual sense he heard in front of the desolate hut. There were the words "Undying Heavenly Emperor" in it. He raised his head and stared at this ancient residence, his heart filled with shock. The undying Heavenly Emperor came here before. The human race's great emperor came here before. Could there really be some great secret? Chapter 584. The divine mountain was majestic. There were no plants growing on it, but there was no lack of vitality. There was immortal energy swirling about, Luans dancing about, and a refreshing fragrance wafted out. Undying divine medicine. Everyone cried out in alarm. There was a medicinal fragrance from so far away, so it was definitely a divine medicine that had survived from the archaic era. An uproar broke out. Many people rushed forward, but not many people dared to act blindly without thinking. It was because there were more than 10 great figures above them who hadn't taken action yet. Central Continent's Divine Dynasty Lord, Southern Mountains Demon Lord and War Lord, as well as Western Desert's Divine Monk. All of them had dignified expressions. They didn't move at all as they stared at the stone doors. The ancient stone doors were 8 jong tall. They were tightly shut, dry and clean. Everyone frowned, thinking that it would be extremely difficult to open. In the end, a great figure from the ancient splendid dynasty walked out from the crowd, walking forward step by step. When he got close, he forcefully pushed. With a loud rumbling sound, one of the stone doors moved half a foot wide, revealing a small crack. Everyone was shocked. They thought that this place was sealed, and that it would definitely take a great deal of effort. They didn't expect it to be so easy. At this moment, the medicinal fragrance became even stronger, flowing behind the stone doors. Many people felt as if they were floating in the air. They couldn't help but swallow their saliva, as if they were going to ascend into the heavens. Swoosh! The dozen or so great figures in the sky turned into an expanse of divine light as they swooped down, standing in front of the cave in a single line. No one dared to compete with them. These people were the current rulers of the world. Even if there were great figures, they still wouldn't dare to make these people their enemy. Amitabha Buddha. An old monk chanted a Buddhist chant. The so-called Amitabha Buddha was the title of an ancient emperor, but it was hard to say whether or not he was born in Western Desert. It was because there were rumors that he came from an ancient star outside this region. I'll open the way. Southern Mountains Demon Lord walked up. With a shake of his hands, the great doors opened with a hunglong sound. He walked in with large steps. What a strong fragrance. There really is an immortal medicine. What a pity, with these dozen or so people here. The other great figures might not even take action, let alone us. Behind them, everyone was discussing. Many people were unwilling, and there were great figures' eyes flickering as they waited for an opportunity to take action. A pair of stone doors opened wide, and dense mist rushed out. This was innate spiritual energy. Everyone rushed over like a swarm of bees, sensing the aura of the divine medicine. Damn it, we've suffered a huge loss this time. That's the legendary immortal medicine. We definitely won't have anything to do with it. Duanda was dispirited, listless, and indignant. Boom! Loud noises rang out from within the cave. Someone had started a great battle. Needless to say, for the sake of fighting over the divine medicine, there were extremely powerful experts taking action. Let's go in and have a look. Dongfang Yi couldn't help but rush forward first. Blind Old Man performed a divination at the last minute, and the tortoiseshell scattered in all directions. He shouted. It's a daunting experience but not a dangerous one. This is a great opportunity. Let's go. This old thing scuttled and jumped like a live rabbit. He didn't look old and clumsy at all. He was very excited and confident. Is this old man on aphrodisiac? The barbarian mumbled. He was agile, but he was overtaken by the blind old man. Yi Fan enlightened passion, and Duanda followed him into the immortal's cave. Spiritual energy surged, and their bodies were baptized. Every inch of their flesh and blood was brimming with power. There really is a divine medicine here. Duanda couldn't hold himself back anymore. His eyes continuously spun about, thinking about all types of methods and arrangements in Necropolis. He wanted to take action. Even though this cave looked grand and imposing from the outside, it couldn't be considered vast. However, once one entered, they discovered that they were in another world. It was incomparably vast. At this time, over 1,000 people had already entered. They stood in the first floor of the ancient cave, but it wasn't crowded at all. Even if another 2,000 people came, it wouldn't be a problem. The divine medicine is over there. There was a jade field up ahead. A fragrance wafted through the air. Green leaves supported immortal flowers, flowing with brilliant colors and dazzling brilliance. There is more than one stock of divine medicine. No, this should be a medicine king. Everyone continuously sighed in admiration. Everyone's eyes became red, truly wishing they could immediately rush over. This was a priceless treasure. With a stalk in hand, even an exceptional emperor would have to bow down. Within a medicinal field made from 5-colored divine jade, the black soil was fertile. 6 stalks of ancient medicine were sparkling and translucent, flowing with immortal mist. The fragrance they released made many people gulp down their saliva. From time to time, there would be earth milk dripping down from the stone walls above, seeping into the soil to nourish these 6 stalks of ancient medicine. Even though it isn't an undying divine medicine, it is an ancient medicine king. It has already grown for 80 to 90,000 years. Heavens, it actually produced so many stalks at once. It truly is heaven-defying. Everyone sighed in admiration. Many people's eyes were about to pop out. In this world, not even a single medicine king could be seen. Even though it couldn't compare to an undying divine medicine, it could still be considered an immortal treasure. A single medicine king could extend one's life for at least 400 years. In the present world, apart from the undying medicines recorded in ancient texts, what other spiritual objects could do this? It was second only to the immortal peach tree and the jade pool. Medicine kings were extremely difficult to nurture. They needed to be continuously watered by earth spirit milk, grow for 80,000 years, and only then could they be called medicine kings. Who could wait for such a long time? 80,000 years, even an undying dynasty wouldn't last more than double this amount of time. Central Continent Emperor Lord, Southern Mountains Demon Lord, and Western Desert Divine Monks surrounded the medicine field. Not far away, there were people fighting a great battle. There were other supreme experts who weren't convinced and fought their way over. The crowd was restless. No one could face them calmly. Many people wanted to rush over and fight a great battle, but they were intimidated by those 10 or so individuals, so they were all hesitant. Heavens, how long has this cave existed for? The medicine kings have flourished and withered for who knows how many generations. Someone cried out in alarm. Within the medicine field made of multicolored jade essence, next to the 6 medicine king stalks, there were a few ancient medicine traces that had long since turned to mud. It was unknown just how many tens of thousands of years ago these ancient medicine king stalks had already rotted away. It was clear that these 6 stalks were nothing more than the seeds of those ancient medicine kings. It was unknown just how many generations they had been multiplied. 6 stalks of medicine king stalks, every single one of them different. Some bloomed with illusory rainbow-colored flowers, their petals as translucent as jade. Some produced agate-like fruits that were fragrant and intoxicating. Every single stalk could extend one's life by 400 years. 6 stalks added together was already equivalent to half an undying divine medicine. Many people's breathing became hurried, finding it hard to control themselves. What right do you all have to divide it? Everyone, let's go together and steal it. Finally, there were some powerful individuals who couldn't hold back any longer. They rushed forward and took action. The others didn't care anymore, not even the Emperor Lord or Demon Lord who tried to stop them. Bang! Dong! This ancient cave was in chaos. Everyone took action, crazily rushing forward. All types of magical treasures were brought out, striking towards those 10 or so great individuals. If not for the formation patterns protecting this place, it would have long been turned into ashes. With so many people taking action, there was no lack of powerful individuals. This type of power was enough to destroy a part of heaven and earth. Amit Buddha. The Western Desert Divine Monk chanted, but it was completely useless. A large iron hammer descended from the sky, smashing down on his bald head and releasing a rumbling sound. This place became noisy. In the blink of an eye, quite a few people lost their lives. The 6 stalks of ancient medicine king were all uprooted, and those 10 or so great individuals had no way of dividing them evenly. They all used their own methods to seize them. Kill. Shouts of war shook the heavens. Those who succeeded ran towards the second layer of the cave, not daring to stay for too long. The others chased closely behind them. The medicine field was completely empty without anything left. The barbarian used all of his strength to strike the stone walls, feeling incomparably regretful. Pooh. Duanda's head popped out from the soil of the medicine field. He spat out a mouthful of black mud and cursed, Motherf I almost succeeded. I ate a mouthful of mud for nothing. During the struggle, he was slapped into the black mud by an exceptional Emperor Lord. The others were incomparably shocked when they saw him jump out alive and kicking. Yi Fan walked over and put away the herb field, which was a few square meters in size. He wanted to keep it as a medicinal herb in the future. I dug up an earthen pot in the past that was even better than this medicine field. Its origins were mysterious, but unfortunately, it was stolen by a bastard. Duanda clenched his teeth and cursed. Yi Fan. Domfang Yi. The two's expressions were calm. They did not say anything out of fear that Fatty Duan would notice something was wrong. 6 stalks of king medicine. They can prolong one's life by 2,400 years. I am truly unwilling to let those bastards take them. The old swindler rubbed his hands. The situation is stronger than the people. Can we win against those 10 or so supreme experts? The barbarian said. Let's hurry up and leave. Otherwise, everything will be snatched away by them. I think there might be a true immortal divine medicine here. Duanda said as he ran inside. The second layer of the cave was just as spacious. It was not crowded at all with thousands of people rushing in. It was still spacious and empty. At this time, the battle had reached its climax, and no one was willing to let go of the king medicine. A saint's weapon. Someone cried out in alarm. In the depths of this cave, there were more than 10 pieces of broken copper. They emitted an ancient and mysterious aura, their luster dim. A broken copper bell has been split into more than 10 pieces, but the formation patterns inside are not destroyed. Someone saw through it with a glance. Even the divine lords were stirred up and rushed forward to kill. Although this copper bell was damaged, it was only a crack on the surface. The heaven and earth patterns it produced were still there, and the bell's deity was even sleeping inside. Dang. Even though the bell had long since shattered into pieces, its power was boundless. When one of the pieces was struck, dozens of people nearby turned into a bloody mist, their bodies and souls extinguished. Too terrifying, the saint weapon's reputation is not in vain. Everyone didn't feel fear, instead becoming even more envious. A group of people rushed forward, including several supreme experts. Dang. Another bell sound rang through the air. This time, it was an emperor lord who held 2 pieces of copper in his hands, releasing a divine sound. Pooh. A half-step supreme expert who was the closest to him had his head separated from his body. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. When the bell waves swept out, he didn't have the slightest bit of power to resist. He turned into a bloody mist and disappeared without a trace. This was the weapon of an ancient saint. Even though it had long been damaged to the point of being almost ruined, the palm-sized piece still possessed this type of power. This is a divine object. If it can be reassembled and completely restored, when the bell waves sound, who under the heavens can stop it? A few supreme experts were moved. If they grasped this type of saint weapon, with it floating above their heads, where couldn't they go? They would be unrivaled under the heavens. Duanda spat out a mouthful of blood and flew backwards. His hand was firmly holding onto a piece of the bell wall. It was a foot long, covered in rust, and its luster was dim. Yi Fan and the others were quite shocked. More than 10 pieces of copper had been seized by those supreme experts. Fatty Duan being able to snatch food from the tiger's mouth was beyond their expectations. Motherfucker, whoever wants to reassemble that divine bell in the future will have to pay a sky-high price to buy it from me. Fatty Duan clenched his teeth. He actually had this idea. Everyone went crazy. There were divine objects in every level of this ancient cave. Everyone quickly rushed inside, because they believed that there were definitely unworldly treasures. Ancient scriptures, undying divine medicines, great emperor holy weapons, they were most likely in the innermost depths. Everyone was extremely excited as they ran with extreme speed. Of course, they were all under the leadership of the supreme experts. If a certain great power didn't have a supreme expert, then it would be impossible for them to obtain a single treasure. It was because many supreme experts had gathered here. A great lake blocked their way. No one expected it to be so vast. It stretched as far as the eye could see, just like a blue sea. Swoosh. A few supreme experts directly crossed over and flew towards the center of the blue lake. The others couldn't fly, so they clenched their teeth and stepped on the water to quickly run forward. White jade heavenly stairway, does it lead to outer space? Everyone cried out in alarm. When they arrived at the depths of the Great Lake, everyone saw a silver river falling from the 9 heavens. There was a heavenly stairway in front of them made of jade that led into the depths of the heavens. It suspended in midair and curled up with mist. Many people were driven mad. Not many people could fly, so it was impossible for them to climb up that heavenly stairway. Voila! Suddenly, the sound of water breaking rang through the air. A small boat rode over from the distance, and there was a person standing on it. He wore a woven rush raincoat and a conical bamboo hat. In his hands was a bamboo pole. Divine will, he truly appeared this time. The old blind man shivered. Chapter 585. A small boat broke through the surface of the boundless blue lake. A man of medium build stood on the boat. His woven rush cape was old and his bamboo hat was tattered, hiding his true appearance. Who is this? He came from the depths of the blue lake. Could it be that he entered before us? Many people were puzzled and doubtful. The lake was clear and crystalline. The small boat slowed down and slowly approached. The man threw down the bamboo pole and stood with his hands behind his back. Unfortunately, they still couldn't see his face. At this moment, the dozen or so great figures were the first to feel that something was wrong. The Central Province Divine Dynasty's Emperor Lord, South Mountain's Demon Lord and War Lord, Western Desert's Divine Monk were all shaken and their expressions changed. Who are you? A peerless Emperor Lord asked. He had already lived for almost 3,000 years and looked down on the world, but at this moment he felt a horrified feeling. On the bamboo raft, the man remained unmoved. He still kept his hands behind his back and silently urged the boat forward. Nothing in the outside world could move his heart. Who exactly are you? My Emperor Lord is talking to you. Did you hear him? An old man came forward. His hair and beard were all white. He was a supreme elder-level expert. Pop. The man on the small boat looked over coldly. He raised his hand and pointed forward. Blood blossomed from the old man's forehead and he immediately fell into the lake, dyeing the blue water red. Hua! Everyone was in an uproar. Who was this person? He was so daring, killing someone in front of an old Emperor Lord. He was truly arrogant to the extreme. Madman! A half-step Almighty walked on the waves and took large strides forward. He opened his mouth and spat out a cauldron that pressed down like a black mountain. Pa! The cauldron was shattered by the man in the straw raincoat on the small boat with a single tap of his finger. The broken pieces of the cauldron fell into the lake like sand. A weapon interwoven with Tao and truth was easily shattered by someone just like that. This person is too powerful. What kind of background does he have? Everyone was terrified and their hair and bones went cold. A cry rang out. The half-step Almighty couldn't help but fly forward. He stepped on the surface of the lake, splashing water everywhere. One could see that he was struggling violently, but he couldn't resist and was sucked onto the small boat. The man in the straw raincoat reached out with one hand and grabbed him by the neck. His other hand was still behind his back. Everything was very casual. Ah! The great step powerhouse cried out in fear as if he had encountered the most terrifying thing in his life. His hands and feet left the ground as he struggled in midair. Pooh! With a soft sound, the half-step powerful being's head shattered. Blood and brain matter flowed out at the same time, soaking into that powerful arm. However, the man in the raincoat did not feel any disgust at all. Plop! He gently loosened his grip, and the corpse fell into the lake, dyeing a large area of the water red. The headless corpse floated in the lake, and no one dared to look at it directly. Now no one could remain calm. They all backed up. What kind of person was this, strangling a half-step supreme being to death with a single hand? His methods were shocking. He's that existence from the ancient tomb, and he's here again. Someone cried out in fright, finally recognizing who it was. It was the mysterious person who had appeared after Yi Fan shot down the 18 stone mountains. However, even now, no one realized that this was the will of a deity. Not everyone was like Duanda and the old blind man, their knowledge so varied. The small boat broke through the water. Its speed wasn't fast, but it was intimidating. The mysterious male stood there with his hands behind his back. His sleeves were dyed in blood and brain matter, but he didn't seem to care at all. Swoosh. In the heavens, an Emperor Lord from Central Continent and South Ridge's Warlord took action at the same time. They each formed a magical imprint and pressed downwards. Hong. Heaven and earth erupted. Blue water overflowed into the heavens. They respectively produced a great imprint and a great bell. They were formed from divine force and had innate patterns interweaved on them. Central Emperor imprint. Southern demonic bell. Everyone cried out in alarm. Even though it was hurriedly struck out, it was still constructed from the natural laws of an unmatched expert. It was incomparably terrifying and could easily kill ordinary powerful beings. Chi. Chi. The divine will raised its head and stood there with its hands behind its back. It didn't make any other movements. 2 streaks of demonic light shot out from its eyes, drawing out a long trajectory. It was cold and beautiful. Dang. In the sky, the southern demonic bell rumbled, and then it quickly cracked apart. An enormous black hole was blasted open, and then it disappeared without a trace. Gotcha. The Central Emperor imprint was like this as well. Streak after streak of cracks appeared, as if a bone had been bitten by a wild dog. It broke apart and shattered, disappearing into nothingness in the blink of an eye. Who is he? What kind of person is he exactly? Everyone cried out in alarm. Could it be that the Eastern Wasteland's Mad Elder came? There were some who suspected that there was only this type of saint in the present world. Otherwise, who else would have this type of method? Just the 2 streaks of light that swept out from its eyes destroyed the natural laws and order created by 2 peak-level figures. It was just too horrifying. Divine will. He is a divine will. Finally, an old monk from the western desert recognized what kind of creature it was. His white eyebrows moved as he chanted Buddhist scriptures. Divine will. Many people were confused. However, those who understood all had pale faces and shivers run through their bodies. How could there be something like this in this world? Central Continent's 4 exceptional Emperor Lords were all moved. They couldn't help but back up. They never expected to see this type of creature. Did a deity really appear in this world? Otherwise, how could a divine will be born? The Southern Mountains Warlord didn't know if he was happy or worried. At this moment, the other cultivators finally understood what a divine will was. This was a type of creature that was born after an ancient deity died. It could be called a devil. Let's see what methods they have to break through it. Duanda backed up as if he didn't care. The old blind man tossed out another tortoise shell and performed a divination on the lake's surface. Head east then south, the most auspicious. The barbarian didn't believe this swindler from the bottom of his heart. However, when he saw Yi Fan and Zhu Yuqing follow him, he also followed. Hong. As soon as they left, the raincoat mail on the small boat released dark light like a black sun. It was incomparably terrifying, and then it transformed into a black hole. Ah! At this moment, it was unknown just how many people cried out in alarm. They couldn't help but fly forward, but their bodies split apart halfway. The small boat's black hole devoured everything. Heads, broken limbs, and torsos were dripping with blood, covering the sky. This was simply a scene from hell on earth. In a split second, over 100 people were torn apart, and all of them entered the black hole. The dark light receded, and the black abyss disappeared. The divine will appeared on the small boat again. There were quite a few bloodstains between his lips and teeth, and there were even some small white bones on his clothes. He swallowed over 100 people in one gulp. Many people almost fell limp onto the ground. These were all experts above the dragon transformation realm, and not a single one of them was weak. In the end, they were all swallowed in one gulp. There really were deities in the past. He is a devil born after the death of a deity. This was a supreme devil. He stood here with an unrivaled momentum. No one could contend against him, and going up would only result in death. After killing over 100 experts in one go, everyone was stunned. Even the supreme experts became silent, and they all fell to chill. Unless the crazy old man comes or invites a few archaic kings, no one will be able to contend against him. Unfortunately, the crazy old man's whereabouts were unknown, and no one knew where he went. As for the archaic kings, there was no need to even think about them. Those ancient creatures were similarly a great threat. Amit Babuda. An old monk from the western desert chanted the name of an ancient emperor. He stood out and said, "My Buddha is merciful." In the past, an ancient Buddha had encountered the divine will, and he left behind a method to subdue the devil. Everyone was shocked. The divine will the old monk spoke of was incomparably mysterious and terrifying. It had always been an existence of legends, yet there were actually people who had encountered it before. Everyone couldn't help but sigh in admiration. The Western Desert's inheritance was ancient, and it was broad and profound. An ancient Buddha had actually subdued this supreme devil. Divine monk, hurry up and use the method to subdue this devil. An emperor urged. We need to work together and chant our Buddha's rebirth mantra together. The old monk spoke. A cold snort sounded. This was the first time this devil had spoken, and it made everyone feel as if they had fallen into an ice house. Cold air gushed out from their pores, and their bodies began to tremble. This type of voice sounded as if it came from the depths of hell. It made people's souls tremble with fear. Namo Amitabhaya, Doda Jia Duoyi, Duo Di Ta, Amitba. At this time, the divine monk from the western region began to chant. He sat cross-legged in the air with a dignified appearance. Buddhist light curled up behind him, and it was as if an ancient Buddha had been reborn. Everyone, chant together to subdue the devil. An emperor shouted. Pull out all negative karma, and rebirth in the pure land of Thurni. Everyone chanted together, and the rebirth mantra resounded throughout the Great Lake. One could clearly see light flying out from everyone's body. They linked together and pressed down on the devil. This devil didn't take action, and it was clear that he wanted to resist the rebirth mantra. He revealed a cold smile, and even though he was in human form, he looked incomparably sinister. The Buddhist divine mantra is indeed extraordinary. It can really stop that devil. Dongfangyi was shocked. On the side, feeling sentient, held a Bodhi branch with a compassionate expression. Buddhist light shone from his mouth as he chanted another type of ancient scripture. It was precisely the Great Compassion Mantra. His voice wasn't loud, but it resounded between heaven and earth. She descended like a bodhisattva. Her clothes were as white as snow, and the golden lotus imprint between her brows shot out streaks of auspicious light. It combined with the rebirth mantra and made the Buddhist sound even greater. Not far away, the devil's body trembled. His eyes shot out two streaks of cold light without the slightest bit of human emotion. The Buddhist light pushed the small boat away. The ancient Buddhist scriptures are truly wondrous. Duanda was astonished. He didn't think that he could truly suppress that devil. Everyone had endless potential. There were some scriptures in the Buddhist scriptures that could allow ordinary people to display some special divine abilities. The rebirth mantra was one of them. When the people of the world worked together, they could eliminate gods and devils. However, if it was used in a single confrontation, it would be a bit weak. It needed to be supplemented by other ancient scriptures in order to strengthen it. Does the Tao Gate not have similar ancient scriptures? If there were divine texts, wouldn't it be even better if we chanted them together? Yi Fan said to himself. Humph. The old blind man didn't like hearing this. He shot him a sidelong glance and said, The Tao Gate doesn't like to create sections. Today, I will also chant one to subdue the devil together. Don't tell me you are going to chant a fortune-telling technique? Dongfangyi didn't believe this swindler and always felt that he was a swindler. Accumulating yang to become a god. There is form within the god. The form is born from the sun is born from the moon. Accumulating yin to form, there is spirit within the form. The old blind man sat on the lake surface and chanted the scriptures. Immediately, a group of people couldn't help but chant along with him. The old man was quite sharp. He understood the meaning of the scripture after hearing it. He wanted to transform this devil that was born from yin. Tao light flowed on his body, making him look like a golden body Tao ancestor. The origin of the heart is clear. One illumination destroys everything. The battle of qi is unyielding, 10,000 senses in one breath. Observing all things with one heart. The old blind man sat in the void and became more and more indistinct. It was as if he was transmitting his voice from outside the world. This is the legendary expiation scripture. The expressions of many supreme experts changed. They were all extremely astonished. The expiation scripture wasn't an ancient scripture of the great human emperor, but it also had extraordinary uses. Even though its fighting strength wasn't great, it could purify all living things. When the expiation scripture appeared, more and more people joined in and chanted together. There seemed to be an indescribable power drawn over from the entire world. Roar! That devil let out a loud roar. He turned into a streak of black light and disappeared from his original location. The Buddhist light and this indescribable power naturally restrained him. Everyone, don't stop. Otherwise, everyone will die here. This devil can kill his way back at any time. A supreme expert transmitted his voice. In fact, there was no need for him to say this. Everyone already couldn't stop. Once the expiation scripture appeared, even the rebirth incantation was somewhat suppressed. When two scriptures were chanted at the same time, the latent divine energy within everyone's body rushed out endlessly. It was difficult to stop. This great lake was bright and resplendent. Many people were immersed in a strange state as they continuously chanted scriptures. Turns out everyone has such powerful and terrifying divine energy. Yi Fan was in a daze. He didn't sink into it. Swoosh. At this time, those supreme experts all moved. They rushed up the heavenly stairway and headed towards the heavenly passage. They weren't immersed in the expiation scripture either. Motherf ****. These old fellows let others chant scriptures while they themselves went to seize the great emperor's divine treasury. Dongfang Yi was indignant. We can't fly up. Yi Fan frowned. At this time, only the supreme experts weren't shackled and could fly. The others couldn't climb the heavenly stairway. At this time, the blind old man opened his eyes and calmly withdrew from the strange state of chanting scriptures. He casually divined and the tortoise shell made a sound. We can also go up. It all fell on him. After divining, he pointed at Duanda. Fatty Duan cursed and said, "You old man, you only know how to swindle and talk nonsense. Damn Fatty, don't dawdle. If you go one step later, everything will be snatched away." The blind old man glared. It was a far cry from the ethereal temperament he had when he was chanting scriptures just now. You swindler. Fatty Duan's eyebrows flashed brilliantly. A star river flew out and hung on the heavenly stairway, carrying them up calmly. Is this the treasure of the legendary celestial river Taoist? But he died 20,000 years ago. This divine object of an invincible king was buried underground with him. The blind old man's eyes widened and said, "You actually stole the ancient tomb of the celestial river king." Don't stare at me. I accidentally fell into a hole and picked it up. Duanda felt a little guilty and then indignantly said, "This old man's treasures were all stolen by some bastard. Now I'm seriously lacking treasures." Yi Fan, the barbarian. Fatty Duan cursed again and again, but the two of them didn't dare to say anything. They let the victim keep cursing for fear that he would notice. They finally climbed the heavenly stairway and walked up into the sky, arriving at a place where all things were born. Here, the spirit chi was like water, almost liquefied. Spirit herbs were everywhere, and vegetation was abundant. Unexpectedly, there was a pure origin forming, and the process could be clearly seen. This is an archaic heaven and earth. The few of them were all shocked. Be careful. Since there is a deity's consciousness, this place is most likely an ancient land where a deity is buried. The blind old man reminded. Huh. With a cry, a golden light streaked across the sky. That's a three-legged golden crow flew over. At the same time, Yi Fan's expression changed. He saw Grand Preceptor Xiao and Xiaoji flying over the mountains in the distance. This is a world within a world. It's very small, but not very big. We must find the ancient coffin where the deity is buried. Duanda gritted his teeth. Chapter 586. Inside this small world, plants flourished, spiritual medicines were everywhere, tides surged, and large amounts of innate spiritual essence existed. This was an archaic heaven and earth. I finally know why the archaic races were so powerful. The era they lived in was just like this, spiritual essence like water, so they definitely improved at lightning speed. These ancient trees towered into the clouds, growing for tens of thousands of years without dying. If they were in the outside world, they would have long dried up. Dongfang Yi and the others couldn't help but be shocked. This was a spirit world like the archaic one, full of mysterious auras. Within this world within a world, all types of strange things could be seen. However, there was one thing that was strange: ancient trees couldn't transform, and strange beasts couldn't cross tribulations. There was a type of mysterious formation pattern that suppressed everything here. There were incomparably powerful beast kings, but there were no humanoid ancient demons. This small world. Yi Fan was lost in thought. He felt his entire body relax, his pores and bones relaxing, easily entering a state of Tao comprehension. The laws of the outside world had changed, not suitable for divine physiques to cultivate, so one could only defy the heavens. However, this place was different, preserving all of the archaic laws and order, harmonizing with his flesh. The immortal Tao is often blessed. The ghost Tao is often vicious. High and pure, beautiful. Sad songs clear in the sky. Only wishing for the immortal Tao to succeed. Not wishing for the human Tao to be poor. Yi Fan casually recited. After saying this, even he himself was startled. This was a flash of enlightenment. This small world made his mind clear, and the Tao realm accompanied it. This truly is a good place. Cultivating here for a year is equivalent to 10 years of cultivation in the outside world. Duanda rubbed his hands, his eyes burning with passion. He actually wanted to collect this small world. Unless an ancient saint came, no one else could collect a small world. The old blind man shook his head regretfully. This is a pond formed from spiritual essence. The barbarian sighed in admiration. Right in front of them was a pond that was less than a square meter. Multicolored light curled up. Essence energy surging, multicolored light overflowing, beautiful and auspicious. It was formed from the liquefied essence energy of heaven and earth. There were a few origin blocks beside the pond that had transformed into translucent crystals. Apart from this, there were many spiritual medicines growing beside it. This is an abnormal source. We saw its evolution process. The others were all shocked. Then they searched around excitedly. If they could find the divine origin pool, then that would truly be a priceless immortal burial, because the divine origin liquid could allow one to seal themselves and live forever. To those below the great emperor realm, this was an indirect way to attain immortality. Even the supreme ancient royal clans survived this way. Divine origin liquid. Fatty Duan cried out in fear and immediately pounced over. There was a small puddle of water under a towering ancient tree. It was only the size of a fist. Divine light surged up and illuminated the entire ancient tree with a resplendent dark green color. Several people surrounded over, clicking their tongues in wonder. With the passing of the archaic era, this type of divine origin liquid had long become a legend, not something they could see at all. I can make one of your fists or two of your eyes immortal, said Yi Fan with a smile. Fatty Duan chuckled non-stop. He took out a small cauldron and carefully sealed the divine origin liquid inside. He used a profound secret technique to add 81 layers of seals, afraid that it would freeze immediately. Continue searching. Who knows, we might be able to find a divine origin lake. Duanda wasn't satisfied and wanted to obtain an even greater harvest. Unfortunately, they knew that this was impossible. Even in the archaic era, divine origin liquid was still extremely rare, something that could only be discovered and not sought. Ow! A roar sounded from the distance. The magnificent mountains and rivers were all swaying, and countless spiritual trees and leaves flew about chaotically. The leaves flickered with green light, and the fragrance of spiritual medicines released multicolored light as they swayed about. Motherfucker, that's a dragon! The old blind man's eyes rolled back in shock. His black eyeballs spun about, becoming brighter than anyone else's eyes. 8 or 9 li out, within the majestic beautiful mountains, a dragon leapt into the air. It was over 200 zhang in length, and green scales flickered about. Its head was high, and its divine horns were forked like a forest. The barbarian's eyes burned with passion as he said, I ate a wild dragon before. They said it was just a flood dragon. Could it be that I am fortunate enough to see a true dragon today? An old monk and 2 supreme powerhouses were subduing the dragon. The 3 of them joined hands to fight it, yet it was only a draw. The battle was incomparably intense. That is a flood dragon. It has already proven its Tao as an ancient beast king, and is even on the verge of breaking through. It is suppressing 3 peak human experts, truly powerful. The old blind man finally determined. On the other side of the sky, flames overflowed into the heavens. There was a fusang tree that towered into the heavens, and there was a crow's nest on top of it. A 3-legged golden crow streaked across the sky and fought with the 2 emperors. The golden bird's body looked as if it was cast from gold, and the divine flames almost burned half of the sky until it collapsed. There are treasures everywhere here. At this moment, the old blind man's eyes were sharper than anyone else's. 2 green lights shot out, and just like a wolf, they looked through the crow's nest on the fusang tree. There are 3 eggs inside. Although they are not real golden crows, if they are properly cultivated, they will become incomparably powerful divine birds. He wanted to borrow the only magic treasure left behind by the celestial river king from Duanda, Star River. He wanted to steal a golden crow egg and cultivate it into a bird king as a mount. Needless to say, once such a golden crow grew up, it would be even more powerful than a sacred master. It was incomparably precious, and no one would not be tempted. However, stealing the egg now was tantamount to taking chestnuts from the fire, and it could easily put one's life in danger. Are you going to lend it or not? The old blind man rolled his eyes. The one who wants to borrow the treasure is a master. Let me tell you, it doesn't matter if you die, but you must return my Star River. Don't lose it. Duanda reluctantly lent it to him. Voila! The Milky Way stretched across the sky like a Milky Way. It spread out in an instant and brought the few of them to the fusang tree, following it. Old faker, you brought us up. Everyone, please help me. I can't get close to that ancient tree alone. The old blind man apologized. Everyone, at #yen%. Everyone wanted to kick him, but he had already flown high into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the branches of the ancient tree. It was too late to retreat. This ancient fusang tree was half a head taller than the surrounding mountains. It towered into the sky, and its whole body was pale gold with endless flames burning. This ancient tree is a rare treasure that can be refined into a fire divine treasure. Duanda drooled. It's not the real fusang divine tree. This is a similar fire tree king. According to legend, the real fusang tree is in the immortal world, where the immortal ancient golden crows reside. Even immortals are helpless, the old blind man said. The fire tree king's pale golden leaves rustled, and the blazing flames were difficult to resist. All of them had to use their magical powers to resist. There were 3 golden eggs in the nest. They were not very big, only the size of a human head, but they were flowing with powerful fluctuations of divine power. Every egg was like a golden fireball with a frighteningly high temperature. Even from a distance, one would feel a burning sensation all over their bodies. I will only take 1 divine egg. I won't end the bloodline inheritance of this divine bird. The old blind man chanted a Tao name with a compassionate expression. You are clearly an egg thief, yet you are still acting like this. The barbarian was disdainful. He had originally wanted to take one of the divine eggs, but now he felt embarrassed. No, there is a supreme treasure in this nest. Duanda cried out as soon as they got close. The others also felt a peculiar aura. It was sacred, auspicious, and vast. There was a pure source of power flowing through it, making the entire nest empty. It was extremely peculiar. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The spirit mouse in Duanda's sleeve cried out incessantly. It was a descendant of the treasure-seeking mouse. Although its blood was thin and it couldn't reach divinity, it could still sense something at such a close distance. They landed on the nest and almost fell to the ground. A boundless power surged, causing them to tremble uncontrollably. Divine object. They finally discovered the abnormality. At the center of the nest, there was a bone under the 3 golden eggs. It was extremely ancient and flowed with a faint golden brilliance. The bone of a saint. The indestructible saint bone. This is a saint bone left behind after transforming into the Tao. They all cried out in alarm. Even if ancient saints died, their flesh and blood would remain forever. However, some saints were unwilling to leave behind their corpses and would dissolve themselves. However, there would occasionally be 1 or 2 of the hardest bones left behind. Those were the most powerful parts of their bodies, and they could not be erased even after transforming into the Tao. This is the arm bone left behind by a saint after transforming into the Tao. It is a priceless divine object. If it is refined into a weapon, the results will be unimaginable. They were all moved and took action at the same time to grab it. Even the tranquil enlightened being couldn't help but brandish his Bodhi branch, causing green leaves to flicker. However, no one could be faster than Yi Fan, because he grasped the rose symbol art. He immediately grabbed it in his hands. At this moment his entire body trembled. The saint bone contained unmatched power, making his mind tremble. "Brother Yi, give this saint bone to me. I owe you a life," Barbarian said solemnly. Duanda and the blind old man also clamored. They were willing to pay any treasures in exchange for it, such as the Star River, Tortoise Shell, Divine King Weapon, and so on. "This saint bone is too important to me." Dongfang Yi pleaded solemnly and explained some of the situation. He came from a savage ancient forest in the Central Plains. The wolf-tooth club in his hand was originally a supreme divine object, but unfortunately, it was heavily damaged after a world-shaking battle in ancient times. To repair it, he needed a divine object like the saint bone to refine it. Don't tell me this wolf-tooth club was originally a saint weapon. Duanda and the others were shocked. Barbarian didn't reply. Instead, he looked at Yi Fan and said, "In a while, I'll help you seize the ancient scriptures. I have my own ancient heavenly technique, so there's no need for other methods." Yi Fan thought about it. He had the myriad chi cauldron. Even though the soul saint bone left behind by the ancient saint was powerful and could be called a priceless divine object, it still couldn't compare to his cauldron and wasn't of much use to him. At this moment, he directly handed over the saint bone to Barbarian. He knew that in the future he would definitely have a great help. Barbarian was incomparably excited and said, "In the future, as long as the saint's laws are engraved on it, this wolf-tooth club will be completely repaired." The eyes of the blind old man and Duanda burned with passion, but they were still quite careful. They didn't kill each other and didn't rob it. "Don't be disappointed, I'll give you a golden crow egg." Yi Fan smiled and handed over a scorching hot golden divine egg to the blind old man. "This is what I wanted to take in the first place." The blind old man rolled his eyes. There's a green copper plate here." Barbarian squatted down and took out a piece of rotten copper plate from the crow's nest. No one knew how long it had been here, as it was mottled with green rust. On the green copper plate, the rust couldn't hide the densely packed engravings. The surface was engraved with small characters like a heavenly book, and there was actually a flow of Tao rhythm. "Brother Yi, take a look." Barbarian handed it over to Yi Fan. Chapter 587. It was a piece of scrap copper. It was as thin as paper and mottled with green rust. It was engraved with tiny characters the size of flies. They were densely packed and flowed with a mysterious aura, like traces of the Tao. Duanda's eyes straightened and shot out two frightening rays of light. He pounced over like a wolf to snatch the scrap copper. Bang! Yi Fan and the Barbarian attacked at almost the same time. At such a close distance, their bodies collided. There was a loud boom and the crow's nest shook violently. Duanda grunted and fell back. His hands were bleeding and the web between his thumb and forefinger was torn. Bright red blood gushed out. In this world, not many people could compete with Yi Fan and the Barbarian in terms of physical strength. Even the Divine Dynasty's overlord would be at a disadvantage in such a confrontation. Duanda's hands were only bleeding and did not turn into meat paste. This was enough to show how strong and terrifying he was. His physical body was very strong. "What do you mean?" Dongfang Yi widened his eyes and stared at Duanda. At this time, he handed the scrap copper to Yi Fan. "I just want to take a look." Duanda ignored his injuries and looked extremely excited. He still rushed over without a care for anything. His eyes stared at the scrap copper without blinking. His eyes were deep as if he wanted to see through it. He almost immersed his mind in it. Others might not know, but Yi Fan knew what was going on. That year, in front of the Eastern Wasteland's Demon Emperor's tomb, the green copper block appeared. It was ordinary and Duanda missed it. At this moment, Fatty Duan stared at the green copper block. He must have thought of many things. That was why he wanted to take it and see what it was. At the same time, Yifan also thought of something. Could it be that this scrap copper had something to do with the green copper block in his body? He held it in his hand and studied it carefully. The barbarian held the wolf-tooth club in front of him and glared at Duanda. He was on high alert. This is... Yifan's expression changed and he was shocked. He stared at the densely packed small characters and frowned. What do you see? Let me take a look. Duanda's breathing became rapid. What does it say? Blind old man also came over and stared at the green copper block. Ju Yuqing also walked forward. Her beautiful eyes were filled with divine splendor as she stared at the ancient bronze plate that was covered in green embroidery. I don't know a word, Yifan said. They were all waiting for him to continue, but they didn't expect him to say something like this. Let me see. Old Blind and Duanda stretched out their hands at the same time, but Dongfangyi blocked them with his big stick. Unless you are an archaic creature, there is no way you can recognize it. This is the most ancient divine text. Yifan shook his head. Yes, he said he of green da of as possible. As of old man of as a fire of green of as fire of as he is as of. This is. Dongfangyi didn't stop them. They looked at each other and stared at the copper block. This was the archaic divine language, a language used by tens of thousands of ancient races. It was rumored that it was created by the ancient deities, and it was the most ancient language used by all races. Duanda finally had the chance to touch the copper block and murmured, "It's not green da." He was a bit absent-minded. Then, he said with grief and indignation, "There was once a supreme treasure in front of me, but king. This fatty is possessed." Barbarian curled his lips. Yifan cursed silently. This damned fatty couldn't forget it. It seemed that missing out on the green copper block had greatly affected him. At this moment, blind old man's eyes were wide open. Duanda didn't want to snatch it, but he wanted to make a move. Yifan retreated cautiously and didn't want to let him look. I'm just taking a look, not trying to snatch it. Oh right, why do I find you familiar? Are you my client? I sold you the immortal burial diagram before. Yifan rolled his eyes and said, You old swindler, you said it was the only copy but in the end, you printed over 1,000 pieces. How many people have you cheated? Who cheated people? I guarantee it's the real deal. Otherwise, how could you find this place? Blind old man dawdled as if he wasn't a profiteer. The others were speechless. All the immortal burial diagrams in the world were sold by him. It could be said that apart from a few great powers, everyone here was his client. Sentient Feeling suddenly said, An item from the primordial era that has been preserved to this day must have supreme symbols engraved on it. Otherwise, even a peerless treasure would return to dust. This is immortal tears green gold. Duanda was puzzled. He stretched out his chubby hands and wanted to snatch it. Blind old man was no exception. Yifan was speechless. These two were comparable to the Black Emperor. They wanted to snatch the treasure away from him. This really is immortal tears green gold. It's the same divine material as the immortal tears pagoda, left behind by the Western Empress. Moreover, there are supreme divine symbols engraved on it. They finally confirmed that this piece of scrap copper was extraordinary and not as bad as it looked. Motherfucker, he really is a wastrel, too much of a wastrel. Using immortal tears green gold to make a page, how can others endure this? Even the great emperor might not be able to gather enough divine objects to refine his own sacred weapon. Duanda shouted. Too extravagant. This is the legendary immortal tears green gold. In the present age, only the Jade Lake has a piece. It's impossible to find another piece after forging it into the Western Emperor pagoda. Blind old man was also distressed. However, even though they said this, they continuously moved forward to memorize the divine characters on the paper. Now, without thinking too much, everyone knew that to dare to use immortal tears green gold as a piece of paper to record these characters was definitely priceless. These characters were absolutely extraordinary. Ouch. Damn. Duanda and blind old man cursed at the same time. They felt a sharp pain in their heads and retreated, revealing expressions of shock. There are supreme divine symbols on this immortal tier's green gold paper after all. Using divine will to memorize these ancient characters is extremely difficult. The two of them said. Yi Fan stared at it for a long time, but couldn't recognize a single character. Even though he knew that this was an immortal treasure, he couldn't read it. He could only stare helplessly. Western Desert. There are people on Mount Meru who can recognize archaic divine characters. Feeling sentient spoke. She was extremely quiet, and her voice carried a bit of magnetism. It was extremely pleasant to listen to. Mount Meru was an otherworldly and incomparably mysterious place. Many people believed that there might be a living ancient Buddha there, but no one dared to barge in. If I have the chance, I will definitely go to Mount Meru to ask for guidance, Yi Fan said. Right now he couldn't go even if he was beaten to death. Sakyamuni had already retreated from Western Desert and became a taboo figure. Yi Fan also came from the other side of the starry sky. If he was discovered by someone from Mount Meru, who knew what would happen? In the future, kidnap an archaic creature and have him read it out. Dongfengyi spoke valiantly. He treated powerful archaic races like chickens and ducks. Yi Fan felt that this piece of green copper was too rare and felt embarrassed to accept it. This is too precious. An ancient saint passed away and left behind a single sacred bone. It has been tempered hundreds and thousands of times, but is still indestructible. It can be said that it condensed all of his profound mysteries, and is an exceptional divine object. You didn't hesitate and directly gave it to me. Feel free to accept this piece of green copper as well, Dongfengyi said. In the end, the two of them put it away. They were both satisfied and incomparably excited. This wolf tooth club will definitely become a weapon of a saint in the future, and it will definitely be extremely powerful. After all, it contains the entire essence of a saint, Duanda muttered. The immortal tier's green gold paper is full of uncertainty, but in the future, it might be able to translate an immortal scripture. The old blind man hugged the divine egg and muttered. The five of them left the crow's nest. They were afraid that the adult golden crows would see them, so they slipped away and appeared in another mountain range. Another puddle. It's the divine origin liquid. Duanda cried out in surprise and threw himself down. It had to be said that this damned fatty's luck was very strong. This time, he discovered a puddle of water that was about a square foot in size. It was formed from the divine origin liquid again. The divine light was resplendent and illuminated the surrounding ancient trees into a bright green like jade. With so much divine origin liquid, I can smear a layer on the surface of my body. I think it can seal me for 10,000 years. If I sell it to those holy lands, I can definitely exchange it for an imperial divine weapon. The old blind man's eyes turned red and he said, Don't you know about tombs? Hurry up and find where that god is buried and dig out that coffin as soon as possible. Otherwise, if those emperors and demon lords get there first, we won't be able to get anything. Duanda calmed down and stared at this small world in a daze. Why do I feel that every place is suitable for burying people? As expected of the immortal graveyard. This small world wasn't big, but it would be tiring to dig out every mountain. Yi Fan went forward and used the heavenly origin divine technique to observe the terrain. He searched for the dragon vein, locked down the universe, and peered into the mysteries of heaven. He wanted to find the immortal graveyard. This world within a world is even more mysterious than the reclining immortal diagram outside. He frowned and stared at a mountain ridge in the mountain range. Look, doesn't that look like a reclining immortal diagram? Everyone's eyes flashed. The more they observed, the more they felt it was similar. The shrubs were lush, and spirit waterfalls poured down. It was as if there was a bloodbath and the corpses of immortals were strewn across the mountains. He should be buried there. Yi Fan provided the diagram of the world. Duanda quickly made a deduction. Next, it was up to him to find the tomb. The five of them were excited. They summoned the starry river and turned it into a waterfall. They leaped over the mountains and appeared in front of this strange mountain ridge. They stopped in their tracks. It's as if a heavenly scar was embedded here. The old blind man sucked in a breath of cold air. The shape of this mountain range was very strange. It looked like the corpses of immortals, but it flowed with the aura of the heavenly path. As soon as they approached, They seemed to hear someone chanting ancient scriptures. The sonorous voice of the great Tao was vast and mysterious. It seemed as if it descended from the 9 heavens and drilled into everyone's ears. However, no one could hear it clearly. It was very restless. It is indeed a mysterious and unfathomable place. Sentient feeling spoke. The Bodhi branch in his hand flowed with green light. Let's take advantage of the fact that the emperors, demon lords, and divine monks are still searching in other places to enter and obtain the immortal graveyard. Dongfang Yi urged. Duan circled around the mountain ridge and climbed up a withered cliff. He said, "We can't force our way through this mountain. Otherwise, there will be a great calamity. Let's enter from here." There was an ancient cave on the withered cliff. It was the mouth of the immortal lying on the ground. It led to the depths of the earth vein. As soon as they entered the ancient cave, their expressions changed. Their divine force was greatly suppressed. There was a supreme pressure coming from the depths of the earth vein that made them want to kneel on the ground. An aura comparable to an ancient emperor. It's similar to a resurrected sacred weapon of the extreme path. Yi Fan had experienced the battle of the northern divine city. At that time, there were people who wanted to kill divine King Jiang, and even borrowed the sacred weapon of the extreme path. He personally experienced the process of the resurrection of 2 weapons of the extreme path. It almost destroyed the surrounding tens of thousands of li. There must be the corpse of an ancient deity here. Fatty Duan could be considered an authoritative figure in the field of necrology. He made such a judgment. Deities. All kinds of signs indicate that they might really exist in this world. We are about to see them. The old blind man muttered. The will of a deity had already appeared. If there were no deities buried here, then it really couldn't be explained. Everyone was very excited. Perhaps they were about to witness a miracle. Chapter 588. The few of them followed the cave on the cliff and went deeper into the earth veins. From time to time, they would find source blocks on the ground, illuminating the entire ancient cave. Drip. Water droplets fell from the walls, flowing with 5-colored light. When they landed on the ground, they were clear and pleasant to listen to. It was as if a wonderful melody was being played, making the ancient cave seem even more peaceful. Yi Fan and the others walked through the cave that was flickering with light. They found it hard to calm down. The majestic aura from the depths of the earth veins made it hard for them to breathe. If nothing went wrong, it should be the corpse of a god, but it was even more powerful than an awakened holy weapon. It was like an ocean surging, making one's soul tremble. Walala, the sound of iron chains swaying could be faintly heard. In this dark and gloomy cave, it was especially frightening. It was like the sound of ghosts from hell, as if there was a devil trying to break free from its shackles. Woo-woo. After walking a few more miles, the wind howled and blew from other forks. Energy attacked them, and those forks were pitch black like an abyss. They didn't investigate, and they couldn't pay attention to it. Only the heavens knew what was in those pitch black forks. Right now, they were only heading towards the main vein that was glowing. Kacha. Along the way, they would see a few source blocks that were attached to the walls. When they were broken off, they would make a clear sound and swirl with multicolored light. It was to the extent where they dug up a few pieces of divine source. They shone with resplendent brilliance, illuminating the entire ancient cave, making it seem like a dream. This ancient god really knows how to choose a place. If we dig this place up, we will find quite a few source blocks. This is a precious treasure land. The aura in front of them became stronger and stronger, making them feel pressured. It was as if they were facing a demonic mountain that reached into the clouds. Their hearts palpitated, and they felt like they were suffocating. If this continues, we might not even be able to get close to the god's coffin. I'm afraid that even if we are far away, our bodies won't be able to handle it and will crack. Gods. Even the ancient emperors and ancient emperors were confused. They didn't know if they truly existed, but now, they were about to witness a miracle. In front of them, there was an ancient tree blocking their way. It was shocking. This underground world actually had such a towering ancient tree. Under the illumination of the source blocks, it was dark green, tender, and full of vitality. However, a few people felt a dangerous aura. Roar! A blood-curdling scream that made people's scalps go numb rang out. It was no different from the howl of an evil spirit. In just an instant, it made people's hair stand on end. Xiao. A black figure darted over like a demon, ferociously pouncing at them. It brought with it an evil wind, and a ferocious aura assaulted their faces. Devil ape. Duanda was shocked. His face was snow-white as he staggered backwards. Everyone's expressions changed, and they all backed up. This was a ghost ape that was a zhang in height. Its entire body was covered in black scales that flickered with dark light. A bitter, baleful aura lingered about it. Its 2 eyes were incomparably resentful, as if it had met its mortal enemy for 10 lifetimes. Its iron hook-like claws stretched out, wanting to rip open the stomachs of the few of them. This is a creature born from the ancient tomb. It is extremely difficult to deal with and extremely dangerous. Duanda shouted loudly, reminding everyone. Clang. Duanda took out a metal seal, which pressed down like a mountain. But under the sharp claws of the demonic ape, sparks flew everywhere, and it turned into metal powder. It should be known that every item on Fatty Duan's body was a rare treasure, but they couldn't withstand a single blow from the demonic ape. One could imagine how terrifying it was. Ew! The demonic ape let out a mournful cry, like a ghost escaping from hell. It once again rushed over. If it were an ordinary person, it would have scared them to death. Buzz. Dongfang Yi made his move. He held the sacred bone left behind by an ancient sage. A touch of golden light flowed as he fiercely swung it out. The demonic ape screamed miserably. It was extremely dexterous. With a schwa sound, it retreated as fast as a ghost. It seemed to be afraid of this golden sacred bone. There really is such a thing in this world. It's a demonic ape. Damn, if we really fought, it could even tear apart a top powerhouse. The old blind man was shocked. This is the 3rd time I've seen it. The first 2 times were in the ancient tombs of the Emergence King and the Celestial River King. I almost died. Duanda still felt some lingering fear. The demonic ape looked extremely ferocious. Its black scales flickered. It stared fiercely at the sacred bone, and did not dare to move forward for a moment. Then it suddenly let out a long cry, like the cry of an owl. So. Not long after, 4 more demonic apes rushed out of the ancient woods. All of them were 10 feet tall. They looked fierce and cruel as they surrounded the few of them. Legend has it that these are the corpses of an ancient top powerhouse. With 5 of them coming at once, we are in danger. The old blind man gnashed his teeth. The few of them retreated together. The demonic apes did not dare to attack. They were very afraid of the sacred bone's arm, and kept roaring in a low voice. If we wait for too long, they will definitely attack. This is not good. Yifan frowned. Duanda gritted his teeth and said, "They've forced me to use my trump card." He took out an ancient copper lamp. It was dark, but the flame never went out. When he opened the lampshade, an inexplicable aura suddenly spread out. The flame was extremely soft and sacred, illuminating the ancient woods with brilliance and light. The lamp was not very dazzling, but its light could penetrate every inch of space. There were no shadows to be found, and a sacred aura filled the air. The 5 demonic apes retreated in fright and cried out incessantly. They were angry and afraid, so much so that their bodies could not help but tremble. This lamp. The old blind man was shocked. He stared at it and said, "The oil in this copper lamp, could it be taken from the body of a saint?" When these words came out, the others were shocked and revealed expressions of disbelief. That's right, the shell of this lamp is nothing, but the oil inside is refined from the body of an ancient saint. It will never go out and can be used to seek fortune and avoid calamity. Duanda admitted that he brought this out from the tomb of Hell King. When he first saw it, he was so shocked that he could not sleep for 3 days. When the saint's oil lamp appeared, the 5 demonic apes retreated in fear. The light and the smell emitted by the lamp made them feel fear from their souls. They did not dare to stay for long. In fact, the arm bone left behind by the saint was even more precious. It was just that it was too restrained, and did not release a supreme holy aura. Thus, it was not as effective as this exceptional oil lamp. Don't put away this lamp. Who knows what will appear in front of us? I'm always worried that the will of a god will appear again. The old blind man was worried. In the outside world, thousands of people are chanting the rebirth mantra and the expiation scripture. Endless divine light has sealed the heavenly stairway. Can the will of a god come in? That's hard to say. There will most likely be other paths. After exchanging a few words, the 5 of them became nervous. They were afraid of encountering that true unparalleled demon, who in the present world could subdue him. Walala! The sound of iron chains swaying in front of them could be heard clearly. It made them shiver with fear as if they had arrived in hell. A black river flowed silently and calmly, cutting off the path ahead. It was like a black abyss that almost swallowed one's mind and soul. It was very calm without any wind or waves, not even a splash. However, it was so black that it made one's heart palpitate. After looking at it for a long time, one's soul would be shattered. It really is true water. Normally, if one could obtain a small gourd of water, it would be regarded as a treasure by cultivators. However, there is a river here. These people were all stupefied. At the same time, they were horrified. This place was too strange and terrifying. After arriving here, their divine force was suppressed even more. Duanda's star river couldn't even fly, unable to cross over. I fear that even the central continent's peerless emperor wouldn't be able to fly here. There was an iron chain above the black river. It swayed with walala sounds. It was pitch black like ink and flickered with specks of light as it connected to the other shore. Are we going to cross the river by climbing the chain? We can't climb over. Look, there are creatures on this iron chain. These people looked carefully, and they all felt a chill run through their bodies. There were actually quite a few corpses wrapped around the iron chain. When their eyes opened and closed, they would release a lush green radiance. Ancient strange corpses. They are experts that came from the later generations and not people from the archaic era. They died here. Upon closer inspection, one could see that this iron chain was quite special. It was known as soul-pacifying iron, a type of rare treasure that naturally attracted corpses. It could prevent corpses from rotting. It was unknown just how many years had passed. There were no less than 10 corpses wrapped around the iron chain. Every single one of them was extremely frightening. From their clothing, one could tell that they had existed for an endless amount of time. They are all peerless characters. Otherwise, their corpses wouldn't have gained sentience. How do we go over? These people were troubled. Suddenly, a white bone boat slowly floated over and drifted to the shore. It was constructed from thousands of snow-white skulls, causing people to feel a sense of dread. This must have been created by the will of the gods. Otherwise, the gods of the ancient era wouldn't have made these frightening things. Get on the boat. We have the sage's oil lamp, so no evil can invade. Even if there are strange creatures in the lunar true water, they wouldn't dare to invade. The 5 of them didn't hesitate too much. They boarded the white bone boat and floated towards the other shore. During this process, the ancient lamp in Duanda's hand flowed with auspicious radiance, illuminating the bone boat. Splash! As soon as they reached the shore, huge waves surged in the river. A dorsal fin appeared, and a blood-colored creature that resembled both a dragon and a flood dragon sank into the water. To be able to survive in the lunar true water, this creature most likely has a terrifying origin. Yi Fan and Dongfang Yi were both astonished. Their physical bodies were very powerful, but they didn't dare to say that they could enter and exit the black lunar true water like this. Hurry up! I feel that those emperors, demon lords, and divine monks are about to arrive. We must obtain the ancient scriptures and immortal treasures before them. Even though they wanted to speed up, they couldn't because the pressure was getting stronger and stronger. Even though they took out all kinds of ancient treasures to protect their bodies, it was as if they were moving through a swamp. Is it the powerful aura of the corpse, or is there an extreme holy weapon suppressing this place? They felt that their bodies couldn't hold on any longer. This kind of pressure made their bones feel like they were about to break. We've arrived. Look, it's an immortal ground in front of us. They arrived at the deepest part of the earth vein, and finally saw the immortal graveyard they were looking for. Endless immortal energy assaulted their faces, making them want to ascend with multicolored light. In front of them, flowing multicolored lights overflowed. This was a vast heaven and earth with tens of thousands of large dragons spiraling about. Endless brilliance lingered about, and the immortal energy was hazy. There was a huge pyramid-like platform there. Of course, it didn't have a pointed top, and the top was extremely flat. It was completely constructed from 5 colored jade stones. This tall platform was tens of thousands of zhang tall. The jade platform was a step-by-step, and one could reach the top from anywhere. Endless immortal energy was hazy, and it was as if they arrived at the immortal realm. It's tens of thousands of zhang tall, but this is the depths of the earth vein. There must be some profound mysteries of the spatial laws. The tens of thousands of zhang tall jade platform was incomparably grand. Primal chaos surged, immortal energy pervaded the air, and over 10,000 large dragons coiled about. It was extremely majestic. We've finally arrived at the immortal graveyard. Look, there is a coffin at the top. Most likely a deity is buried inside. Their divine power was pretty much sealed, but their divine senses and spiritual awareness were still there. They felt that kind of pressure. An ancient coffin was lying on top of the tens of thousands of zhang tall jade platform, and it seemed like it was going to crush the ages. If we can open the ancient coffin, we will be the first people to see a deity since the ancient times. Chapter 589. The 10,000 zhang tall jade platform ascended step by step. Dragons and phoenixes soared, primal chaos swirling about. Even though everyone knew that this wasn't real, they were still shocked. The azure dragon and divine phoenix were extremely realistic. There were over 10,000 of them formed from immortal energy, adding a mysterious aura to the 5-colored jade platform. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't be able to see anything even if they looked up. After all, the 5-colored jade platform was tens of thousands of zhang tall. However, everyone's divine eyes were like lightning, piercing through the clouds and mist, vaguely seeing it. Above, there was a coffin that was old and ancient, releasing endless vicissitudes. Even though it was less than 3 zhang long, it seemed to have endured endless eras, storing all of the years. What great changes, what boundless great earth, what boundless starry sky. None of it could compare to a corner of the coffin. It seemed to have condensed the past, present and future, passing through millions of years. At this point, no one could safely pass through. Their bodies were about to break apart. Their entire bodies were in intense pain, and even their bones were cracking. On this 5-colored jade platform, there was a boundless terrifying pressure that surged like a tide. It was vast and mighty, making one's body feel like it was going to collapse. Had the extreme Tao of the great ancient emperors revived? This was what everyone was wondering. This type of matchless pressure had only appeared during the battle of the Northern Divine Region City. No cultivator could resist it. Could it be that it was released by a corpse? Just how terrifying of a power did it have when it was still alive? They couldn't help but feel horrified. Right now, they were not far from the 5-colored jade platform, unable to take another step forward. All ancient treasures were useless. At this time, everyone's divine force was severely suppressed. Even though they could still use magical power, it wasn't as smooth as before. At this point, Yifan and Dongfang Yi were undoubtedly the most suited to this environment. Their bodies were even stronger than divine lords. Even though their divine force was weakened, their fighting prowess didn't decrease. This ancient coffin might have existed since the archaic era. Whether or not there were deities in this world would be revealed today. The coffin wasn't placed horizontally on the 10,000 zhang jade platform, but instead floated in the void above, suspended within the primal chaos and immortal energy as if it had a life of its own. It's over, we can only stop here, unable to take another step forward. What should we do? Dongfang Yi said. The 10,000 zhang tall platform was right in front of them, yet they couldn't approach it. The aura descending from above was difficult to endure, as if their bodies and souls would be destroyed. A group of small fries even came here, not knowing the difference between life and death. A young man's voice sounded. He walked over with his hands behind his back. Trash, who are you talking about? Dongfang Yi licked his lips. This was a sign that the barbarians were about to attack. He raised the big stick in his hand. Don't be rash. This is a powerful being. The old blind man stopped him. A bunch of trash. This young man looked over in disdain. He slowly walked over, bringing with him an oppressive pressure. Yi Fan and the others felt that something wasn't right. This was a powerful being whose temperament wasn't up to standard. He didn't take them seriously at all, and wanted to clear this place. Uncle. At that moment, another voice rang out. A middle-aged man approached this place with great difficulty. It was obvious that the 10,000-meter-tall jade platform was giving him a great deal of pressure. Yi Fan cried out in his heart. This was bad. The Xiao family's people had arrived. It was the half-step almighty Xiaoji who had tried to kill him several times. Yi Zhaotian. When Xiaoji arrived, he immediately spotted Yi Fan. His eyes widened, and he let out a roar as he prepared to pounce at Yi Fan. He's the one who killed Mingyuan. The young man's expression immediately darkened. He looked down at Yi Fan and said, "Are you going to cut yourself, or are you waiting for me to do it?" Yi Fan snorted coldly. He didn't say anything. His steps were light, and he glided over like an immortal towards the 10,000-meter-tall jade platform. He was moving forward against the strong pressure. In an instant he arrived in front of the jade platform. At this place his divine power was suppressed even more, and it was very difficult to use it. "Little Yi, let's see where you can go now." Xiaoji walked over with an eerie expression. He was like a cat playing with a mouse. He didn't hurry and approached Yi Fan. Xiao Yunxing was Grand Tutor Zhao's blood brother. He looked very young, but this was not his actual age. With his hands behind his back, he didn't seem to care at all. He walked over and looked down at Yi Fan. "Kneel down yourself. Little dog Yi, let's see how you can survive this time." Xiaoji's expression was sinister. With one step, he arrived in front of Yi Fan. With the 8 trigrams purple copper cauldron in his hand, he slammed it down. At this moment, Yi Fan didn't show any fear. Instead, he revealed a mocking expression. He calmly made an embracing mountain seal with his left hand and slammed it forward. This wasn't the seal technique of the past, but the flawless secret technique he obtained from the precipice of the savage world. This was the earth seal of the 3 seals of heaven, earth, and man buzz. The power was extreme and incomparably ferocious. It was as if a piece of earth was pressing down. This left hand filled the sky, terrifying beyond compare. Xiaoji sneered. He was a half-step almighty. How could a dragon transformation realm cultivator be his opponent? The purple copper cauldron in his hand flowed with purple splendor as it pressed down. However, he immediately felt that something was wrong. His divine power was not flowing smoothly, and he was severely suppressed in this place. He actually couldn't activate his weapon. He suddenly became vigilant. This wasn't what made him feel uneasy. His opponent's strength was far inferior to his, so he should be suppressed even more. However, his opponent's hand seal wasn't restricted. Once the embracing mountain seal appeared, it was as if the earth was in the sky. It was heavy and imposing, suppressing everything. A large black hand slammed down. Dang! In front of the 10,000 Zhang Jade platform, everyone's Dao power was suppressed, and they couldn't smoothly use it. However, Yi Fan's physical body was strong, and this was pure physical strength. Embracing mountain seal. Yi Fan's left hand was like a black peak as it struck the purple copper cauldron. A rumbling sound rang out, and with a crack, the copper cauldron cracked and fell to the ground. Behind him, everyone was shocked. A weapon interwoven with the laws of order was destroyed just like that by his physical body. Just how strong was his physique? Retreat! Xiao Yunxing shouted. He rushed over with a step, activating his overflowing magical power to block. Yi Fan's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. The embracing mountain seal in his left hand continued to shake, and a black shadow of a great mountain appeared, pressing forward. Xiaoji shouted and did his best to retreat. He pushed out both hands to block the black embracing mountain seal, but he was powerless. Pooh! His hands immediately turned into a bloody pulp, crushed by the black peak. Then his arms, like tofu, were brushed by Yi Fan's left hand and also shattered with a pop. Blood and bone fragments flew everywhere. Behind him, everyone was shocked. However, Xiao Yunxing's magical power finally surged over and blocked Yi Fan's attack. Bang! There was a huge tremor, and Yi Fan fell back. Xiaoji used this opportunity to stagger back. His arms had disappeared, turned into a bloody pulp, and no longer existed. In this place where immortals are buried, everyone's divine power was suppressed. Yi Fan relied on pure physical strength to seriously injure a half-step cultivator. Ah! Xiaoji screamed. He was going crazy and couldn't believe all this. With his strength, no matter how many Yi Fan came, he could kill them. But now this was the result. In just one exchange, his arms were destroyed by his opponent. He was angry, ashamed, angry, and annoyed. The pain made him sweat profusely. Xiao Yunqing's face was as calm as water. Although he looked like a young man, his power was comparable to a sect leader. His black hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like lightning as he rushed over. Swoosh! Yi Fan was even faster. He ascended the sky in 9 steps and rushed to the jade platform's 18 steps. He felt endless pressure pressing down from that height. Here he stopped. His right hand moved, and marks of the Tao appeared. He formed the man-ruler seal. At this moment, he was like a sovereign of the human race. He looked down on the world and the vast earth with a domineering attitude. This was the man-ruler seal. Once it was displayed, a person's temperament would change. He was like the king of the human race, standing in the clouds and looking down on all beings. Boom! Yi Fan formed the seal. With a loud sound he staggered backwards. Although he was shaken, there were no injuries. On the other side, Xiao Yunqing's expression changed. He was an almighty, but his overflowing mana was not flowing smoothly, so he couldn't kill his opponent. Again. Yi Fan climbed up the 9 steps and shouted. Not good. For the first time, Xiao Yunqing felt the seriousness of the situation. The opponent's physique was abnormally strong, even stronger than an almighty like him. It was beyond his expectations. In this place, the mana was suppressed, and the strength of the physique was fully displayed. If he climbed to the top of the jade platform, it was hard to say who would live and who would die. Trash, come up and fight! Yi Fan sneered. Xiao Yunqing's expression darkened. Without saying a word, he climbed up the jade steps. A cultivator from the dragon transformation realm was shouting at an almighty. This caused the people below to be stunned. This was truly awe-inspiring. Ah! Below, Xiaoji shouted. After losing both his arms, he was in great pain. Seeing this scene, he was furious. What are you shouting for? The barbarian walked forward with his wolf-tooth club. He was fierce and stared at the half-step almighty. You! Xiaoji almost died of anger. His strength was unfathomable, and he was respected wherever he went. But today, he was being looked down upon. However, he knew Dongfangye's background. He was a barbarian from some ancient tribe. His physique was extremely abnormal. If they fought in this godforsaken place, he would definitely be at a disadvantage. What happened? At this moment, a clear voice was heard. A spirited old man arrived. It was Grand Preceptor Xiao. Beside him was an old man. Father, you are finally here. Xiaoji spat out a mouthful of blood, drenching his clothes. Without saying a word, the barbarian rushed up the jade platform. He would definitely be at a disadvantage if he stayed below. He had to imitate Yi Fan and rely on his physique to climb up. Bang! Above, Yi Fan's hand formed the human ruler imprint. His black hair danced about crazily. He fought a great battle with Xiao Yunqing, but he was still unharmed. Suddenly, he fought against an almighty being. The people who had just arrived were all shocked, especially Grand Preceptor Xiao and the others. Their expressions continuously changed. At this moment, the 4 emperors of the Central Plains, the demon lord of the southern mountains, and the divine monk of the western desert all arrived. They all revealed strange expressions. Forget it. Grand Preceptor Xiao waved his hand and made Xiao Yunqing retreat. The 2 barbarians of the younger generation could rely on their physique to fight against almighty beings on the jade platform. If 2 of them were killed here, it truly wasn't worth it. So lively. A few more sect masters arrived. They were all great figures whose might shook the world. Some of them were cultivators that gave the 4 great immortal dynasties headaches. They came from the 100 sections. Yi Fan's heart trembled. He saw a few familiar people. He had seen them at the Jade Lake Feast of Peaches. For example, the old sect master of the Central Plains Yin Yang sect. He was over 3,000 years old, and was a living fossil-level character. At this moment, apart from Yi Fan's group, there was no one from the younger generation. They were all world-shaking sect master-level existences that looked down on the boundless earth. These people all came. It was clear that there was going to be a great battle. Even the flesh and bones of the ancient saints were world-shocking divine objects, let alone the ancient deities. The floating ancient coffin on the 10,000 zhang jade platform was a priceless immortal treasure. No one would let it go, and there would definitely be a bitter struggle over it. At this time, everyone dispersed and began to ascend the platform from different directions. They walked up the jade stairs. These people are truly well prepared. They brought so many super forbidden artifacts. The old blind man was astonished. Duan sighed and said, "They have engraved a portion of the laws of the ancient saints. Yin-yang mirror, heaven-flipping imprint, southern demon bell, and middle emperor cauldron. With so many super forbidden artifacts, they can make it to the 10,000 zhang jade platform. We've already come this far. Don't tell me our efforts will all go to waste?" Dongfang Yi was unwilling to give up. He took out the saint's golden arm bone. The old blind man poked Duanda and said, "Little fatty, don't hide anymore. You have a lot of treasures on you. Hurry up and take one out. We can't let them ascend the jade platform first." "Old bastard, you have great treasures on you. Take one out, and it will be enough to protect us," Duanda said. The two swindlers began to wrangle. In the end, Duanda became anxious. He took out the saint's oil lamp and placed it together with Dongfang Ye's golden arm bone. "Old bastard, hurry up and offer your treasures." The old blind man chanted an incantation. An ancient shield flew out and also placed it on the saint's arm bone. To be more precise, it was a tortoise shell. Enlightened being didn't say a word. He stretched out the Bodhi branch and placed it in front of them. Immediately, boundless life energy surged out and shocked everyone. Yi Fan thought for a moment, and took out the rotten copper piece. He crossed it with the other artifacts and immediately, an indescribable Dao rhyme flowed out. There were divine patterns carved on the immortal tears green gold paper. These artifacts weren't the weapons of the ancient saints, nor were they replicas. However, some of them were relics left behind by the saints. When they were put together, they flowed with an indescribable aura. They advanced step by step, and were actually able to temporarily block the pressure from the jade platform. When they reached 5,000 feet, these artifacts couldn't withstand the pressure anymore. The few of them found it difficult to move forward. The pressure from the divine remains covered the sky and earth, wanting to tear them apart. It was difficult to endure. What a pity! The only saint's bone left behind by the ancient saints has been tempered hundreds and thousands of times. It's a peerless divine object. It's just that it didn't have the corresponding formation patterns carved on it. Otherwise, it would be able to protect us. Isn't my saint's lamp the same? It's a true divine material, but it doesn't have the corresponding law imprints. What do? Can't we go up? They stopped at 5,000 feet, halfway up the jade platform. It was difficult to go any further. Even Yi Fan didn't dare to take the risk. Crack. Cracking sounds came from other places. The supreme forbidden artifacts were cracking, and many people had no choice but to stop. Hey, something's not right. There are still some major forces moving forward. They must have some unknown divine objects on them. Let's go all out. I must get the relics of the ancient gods. Duanda clenched his teeth and finally took out his ultimate treasure. Swoosh. With a flash of light, a broken bowl appeared above his head. Thousands of strands of black light fell down and protected the few of them. After we go up, I will use the secret technique of tomb study to change the sky and earth and steal the coffin of the god. You must cooperate with me, Duanda warned. Once the broken bowl appeared, it isolated the supreme pressure. It possessed a mysterious power that made everything within 3 feet calm without a single ripple. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, they went all the way up. Although there was a terrifying aura, their footsteps weren't stopped at all. They slowly reached the top of the jade platform. Trash. Someone sneered. It was Xiao Yinsheng. He looked young, but he was a top expert. Grand Tutor Xiao and the people of the Yin-Yang school gathered together and reached the top first. It was unknown what kind of divine object they used to resist the pressure of the god. On the high platform, dragons and phoenixes soared and ancient coffins floated up and down. Several groups of people had already come up, and immortal energy lingered in the air. Chapter 590. Most of them were from the central prefecture, but there were also some from the western desert and the southern mountains. All of them used their own methods to make it to the top of the platform. At this moment, Yi Fan and the rest stood out. No matter what, they could not be considered as strong cultivators, but they managed to make it to the top with a broken bowl. This bowl is not bad, Xiao Yunsheng said sinisterly. He stretched out his hand to take the bowl away. There was an endless pressure here. If the broken bowl was taken away, the few of them would be turned into dust in an instant. Their souls would be destroyed. Above Xiao Yunsheng and the rest, there were more than 10 forbidden weapons. They combined together and blocked the pressure. At this moment he was fearless. Yi Fan waved his right hand and lightly flicked upwards. The man-ruler seal appeared naturally. It was like thousands of mountains swaying at the same time. It pierced forward and blocked the endless Fa towards the big hand. Boom! After a huge tremor, the two of them retreated at the same time. Everyone was shocked. The strength of Yi Fan's physique had exceeded their expectations. On this jade platform, everyone's Fa was sealed. Those with strong physiques had the absolute advantage. Everyone, this is a treasure. Maybe there is a saint's law imprint inside. Xiao Yunsheng's eyes were sinister as he stared at the broken bowl. As soon as this sentence came out, everyone looked over. Yi Fan and the rest immediately became the focus of all kinds of gazes. Many people revealed strange expressions. Without a doubt, this was very disadvantageous to Yi Fan and the rest. If there was a fight later, many people would pay attention to them and fight for the bowl. Once the few of them lost the protection of the broken bowl, their souls would be destroyed. Xiao Yunsheng wanted to use others to kill them. Yi Fan, Dongfang Yi and the rest were furious. They stared at the few of them. They really wanted to smash the forbidden weapons above their heads and let them have a taste of what it felt like. Unfortunately, Xiao Yunsheng and the old leader of the Yinyang cult had gathered many powerful cultivators. If they really wanted to fight, their strength was too weak. Before this bowl is lost, I will kill you. Yi Fan stared at Xiao Yunsheng and said calmly. He had just entered the dragon transformation mystery realm not too long ago, and was nothing in front of these people. However, the uniqueness of this place gave him the right to say such words. Many people felt that it was absurd to threaten a supreme being like this, but they also felt apprehensive in their hearts. If they were killed by him, it would really be too unjust. Xiao Yunsheng sneered. There was nothing more to say now. Once they got off the platform, he would kill Yi Fan with lightning speed. At this moment, everyone's gazes converged onto the coffin once more. This was the true focal point of their fight, a supreme immortal treasure. Why can't we move the coffin? Duanda was anxious. He carried the broken bowl and walked on the jade platform. He had long laid down the coffin locking technique, but it was ineffective. This is the ancient coffin of a deity. How can it be moved by ordinary strength? Your burial studies are completely useless, so don't waste your strength. The old blind man said. The coffin was ancient, rising and falling in the void. There were true dragons, divine phoenixes, and others formed from immortal energy, vivid and lifelike. There were thousands to tens of thousands of them, winding about here. Hiss! Everyone gasped. Upon closer inspection, they discovered that the ancient coffin was actually exuberant with life force. Its vitality was incomparably exuberant, even more abundant than everyone's spiritual essence. What is going on? The ancient deity still hasn't died? The coffin floated up and down, not all that stable. When it descended, everyone discovered an abnormality. There was actually a tender leaf growing on the coffin's lid. It isn't that the deity hasn't died, but rather that the coffin hasn't dried up yet. A meter-long branch grew out from the coffin's lid. It was verdant and glistening, and there were a few leaves on it. The exuberant spiritual essence was precisely released by it. How could this be? This should be a coffin from over 1,000,000 years ago. After such an endless amount of time, how could it produce a tender shoot? This is a coffin carved from a stalk of divine wood. Southern Mountain's demon lord revealed the mystery. At this moment, there wasn't a single person who wasn't moved. They were all shaken up. Divine trees and undying medicines were things that could only be discovered and not sought after. Ever since the archaic era, Almost all of them had been destroyed. However, there was someone who carved a coffin from an undying tree. In their eyes, this was simply a reckless waste of natural resources. It was truly too wasteful. I understand now. The deity is unresigned, wishing for eternal life. There were some great powers who were horrified. They thought of a few ancient legends. At this moment, everyone was shaken up. They thought of a few secrets. Legend had it that heavenly deities used undying wood as a coffin, allowing them to remain undying through the ages. One day, they might be able to revive. In this world, only the undying medicine and undying tree could exist forever. They wouldn't be destroyed by the passage of time. A coffin carved from undying would naturally maintain some of its characteristics. Within the rare ancient texts that existed in this world, there were some records stating that for the sake of being undying, deities would find an undying tree to bury themselves in before they died. However, how many undying trees could there be in this world? Only one or two deities had done this type of thing, because there was simply no way of doing it. Of course, no one believed these types of records. From the ancient times until now, there were only legends and no deities descending into the world of mortals. The theory of no immortals had long become the consensus of most people. However, today, they saw a coffin carved from an undying tree. Everyone was shaken up. Without a doubt, this was subversive. It proved that some of the ancient texts' records might be true. Endless years ago, even before the archaic era, perhaps immortals really did exist. This is Tao Comprehension Ancient Tea Tree. Finally, someone recognized the material of the coffin. On that tender branch, there were a few leaves that were sparkling like agate. Their colors and shapes were all different. Too extravagant. While everyone cried out in alarm, they also released a breath of relief. The Tao Comprehension Ancient Tea Tree was still alive. An undying mountain, not extinct. One could imagine that as early as the archaic era, there was someone who cut off an undying tree to carve a coffin for himself. However, he left behind a divine root. After endless years passed, the Tao Comprehension Ancient Tea Tree already recovered. Meanwhile, this coffin didn't decay either, still retaining a strand of vitality. Even this coffin is a treasure. Everyone thought of this problem. After this coffin was dismantled, not only was it a divine object for refining weapons, it was also a precious treasure for comprehending the Tao. This ancient coffin was too extravagant. From past until now, perhaps only one or two deities had done something like this. Others didn't even need to think about it. Swoosh. Someone took action. An expanse of multicolored mist flew out, wishing to seize the initiative and pull down the coffin. Everyone was shocked. There wasn't the terrifying aura they had imagined, no destructive fluctuations descending. This was a bit illogical. The ancient coffin carved from the undying tree steadily descended onto the jade platform. It was divine auspicious, and incomparably peaceful. Something's not right. This tremendous pressure and exceptionally terrifying aura isn't released by it. Could it be that there is something else? This platform was extremely vast, and there was a mortal mist and chaotic energy swirling about. Everyone's first impression was the strongest, so they didn't search other places at all. At this time, a divine monk from the western desert's eyes were like torches. He stared at a hazy area and said, "Amit Babuddha." A corpse. Everyone was horrified to discover that the source of the terror wasn't related to the coffin carved from the undying tree at all, but rather on the other side. There, multicolored light flowed about. It was unknown just how many years it had existed for, but there was an ancient corpse sealed within. This piece of ice was extremely special. Even though there was cold energy, it wasn't bone-piercing. 5 types of brilliance flowed about, releasing astonishing vitality and vitality. However, this type of auspicious aura was completely scattered by the corpse within the ice. It was as if he stood at the peak of the endless ages, overlooking the past, present, and future. Everything crawled beneath his feet. Is this an immortal corpse? Everyone was stupefied. They didn't fight over the coffin and instead stared rigidly at this corpse. On the 10,000 zhang jade platform, the unmatched heavenly might that rippled out in all directions originated from him. He was the source of all power. At the same time, everyone noticed something strange. This piece of ice's shape was quite similar to the ancient coffin, as if it was originally placed within the coffin. Everyone was moved inwardly. There was no reason for it to be just a piece of ice. Perhaps it really was originally in the coffin. Everyone quickly thought of this possibility. The ice was hazy. Everyone used all types of exceptional forbidden artifacts to protect themselves. They floated above their heads, resisting the tremendous pressure as they walked forward to observe this departed deity. It's not a corpse, there are no flesh bones. Everyone was stupefied. When they got closer, they finally saw the figure within the five-colored divine ice. They all revealed expressions of confusion and shock. This wasn't a complete corpse, but rather a piece of human skin. It was dyed in five-colored blood and flowing with terrifying fluctuations. How could it be like this? Long purple hair, smooth skin that flickered with precious splendor. Even now there was still luster. There was a crack on the back. The flesh and bones peeled out from this place. The blood that was dyed in was extremely dreamy, greatly different from the human races. There were a total of 5 colors, brilliant and dazzling. Is this a deity from the archaic era? Where did his flesh go? Why is there only an outer layer of skin left? Before the ancient era, there were immortals. Is this proof? Everyone crowded around, all of them shaken. Regardless of whether he was a deity or not, this skin was priceless, comparable to a great emperor's holy object. It was because this type of fluctuation was too terrifying. However, not a single person dared to act blindly without thinking. This immortal skin was almost comparable to the aura of a revived extreme Tao weapon, crushing everyone until they were about to collapse. Even though they used all types of divine objects to protect themselves, it still wasn't enough. They actually felt like they couldn't hold on any longer. Is this really immortal skin? Could it be the skin of an extreme great emperor? There is a line of ancient characters here. Suddenly, someone released a cry of alarm. They discovered a line of characters on the other side of the solid ice. They were written in iron hooks and silver strokes, bold and powerful, as if the great Tao of heaven and earth was embedded there. At this moment, everyone's expressions were extremely brilliant. These characters greatly impacted everyone's thoughts. The general idea was that there was a latecomer who wished to borrow the ancient coffin to sleep and bury himself, and that they had offended him. Even borrowing a coffin. Many people were speechless. Borrowing a coffin from a deity, could it be another deity? That's not right. These are the human race's ancient characters. Before the archaic era, they were all divine characters. It can't be this type of character. Someone cried out. Everyone woke up. Just now they were too engrossed and forgot about this gargantuan abnormality. The human race's expert borrowed the coffin of a deity to sleep and bury himself. Could this be an ancient great emperor? Everyone's fine hair stood on end. Their minds were highly concentrated as they looked towards that ancient coffin. Someone was sleeping peacefully inside. These characters are like the heavenly Tao, and they vaguely feel a trace of familiarity. Where have I seen them before? Correct, they seem familiar. They have definitely circulated in this world before. It was just a hurried glance. Everyone's minds were shaken. Who exactly was this? They didn't immediately take action against the 5-colored divine ice, and instead arrived before the coffin carved from the undying tree again. They prepared to open this ancient coffin and take a look. This is the imprint of the latecomer. Everyone saw a few indistinct symbols, and they were all shocked. This represented that person's identity.